Welcome into TYT's The Conversation. I'm your host, Adrienne Lawrence, and today I am joined by the editor for Insider's Voices of Color. It's a platform that amplifies underrepresented perspectives in news, entertainment, art, and culture. Thanks so much for joining us, Kenya Evelyn.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, Kenya, the Milwaukee Bucks, I know they are jazzed and excited and hyped to have their first championship. It's been 50 years, it's a huge thing, but it seems like there's a lot underlying this story, especially given the city of Milwaukee. What additional kind of insight would you add to this win?
Well, absolutely. I think what is fascinating for this city is one, it being hometown. Shout out to Milwaukee. So congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. But it represents what can be for when we're not necessarily putting the focus on money and power and investing in smaller, underrepresented communities and cities. Milwaukee is one of those medium market and NBA franchises that's easy to overlook. Folks didn't realize that we even had a original NBA championship that we won almost 50 years to the day. That we won it earlier this month. So it's essentially important to look at Milwaukee as this microcosm for the broader sense of what's happening in America right now. Milwaukee was supposed to host the Democratic National Convention last year and lost incredible amounts of money in that investment, but that in particular exacerbated economic inequities among races in Milwaukee and among communities of color. And Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in America already. So knowing that there has been an unequal investment, an unequal amount of funding and buy-in from the city, in addition to the Milwaukee Bucks investing in downtown areas that we see in East Side areas. When you look at even where the Milwaukee Bucks play, when they're playing at Fiserv Arena, just a couple miles or even a half mile up the block or up the hill are blocks upon blocks of destitute communities, abandoned, boarded up houses, and it speaks to the unequal investment that Black Milwaukeeans have been shouting from the rooftops in the city. And so now when there's this opportunity to buy into the city of Milwaukee and count this as a victory for the state of Wisconsin more broadly, Black Milwaukeeans are wanting to remind folks this is specifically a 414 victory, a 414 being the area code for Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This isn't a 262 victory. This isn't one of the suburbs from one of the same folks who any other time are disassociating themselves from Milwaukee. This is an opportunity to have real conversations about how to invest in the community and those who make up the majority of the city, communities of color, and how that investment can be long term.
And I can hear that you are invested in the knowledge base of the city and the things that impact it. And you really hit me when you had said that Milwaukee's ranked as one of the most segregated metro areas in the nation, and also one of the most politically polarized. Now that the spotlight is on Milwaukee having this NBA championship in its hands, how do you think that could potentially impact the city moving forward?
Well, the Milwaukee Bucks organization being a conglomerate of majority owners and also a Black female minority owner have been forward thinking and been upfront in saying that they want to invest in progressive initiatives throughout the city, throughout southeastern Wisconsin, and bringing back those dollars that people are investing into the team and by default bringing back into the city and to the communities that need them. And that's what local leaders have been calling for, but that's also what community leaders have been saying has been long overdue in the city. And it shouldn't take a championship, one that came 50 years after the first. We don't necessarily receive the revenue of the Green Bay Packers located to more than 2 hours to our north. We're oftentimes overshadowed and in the shadow of our sisters in Chicago. So we don't necessarily get that buy-in. We don't get the publicity and we don't get the added revenue that brings. But now here's that opportunity. And instead of squandering that opportunity and continuing to invest in and build up communities where folks aren't living, and it is perpetuating and exacerbating what is the beginnings of gentrification in the city of Milwaukee. Let's invest those in the same communities in the north side of Milwaukee and the west side of Milwaukee. The same blocks that if I go every 5, 3, or 4 years as someone who has moved away from Milwaukee in my adulthood looks exactly the same as it did when I was a child. Let's talk about investing and revitalizing all of Milwaukee instead of where the Bucks play.
Yes, I think that would be an extremely powerful thing, especially for those communities that have been there supporting the Bucks and who are just members of the community who would like to see that their areas are receiving the funds that it deserves. And so I know that there has been a lot of talk in that area, largely in part when it comes to police violence, because that's something that we have had on that national level as well as in Minneapolis in particular. And I know that the Bucks were touched by police violence back in 2018 when Milwaukee had a police taser against a player named Sterling Brown, and they arrested him just because he had parked illegally in a handicap accessible spot. Now, the Bucks really supported him, but on a larger scale, had that impacted the city at all in terms of how it engaged with police and its citizens?
Absolutely. And even continuing that, we saw Milwaukee last year taking the lead during the NBA playoffs, during the bubble that was in Orlando. And just last year in reporting on Black voting power within the city of Milwaukee and looking at those disparities, like we mentioned, not just one of the most racially segregated, but also one of the most politically divided. Milwaukee was at the front and center of these conversations as just about 45 minutes south in Kenosha, we were having conversations related to policing and protests there. And so Milwaukee and players on the Bucks wanted to take a step forward, and they boycotted their game last year. They boycotted the NBA playoffs until the NBA could be a leading voice in having these conversations about policing reform in America. And that continued throughout our unprecedented 2020, where we were having racial unrest and this reckoning in America. The Milwaukee Bucks have been essentially at the forefront locally within the community and then within the league in saying that we shouldn't have a hands-off approach on this. Merely having Black Lives Matter on a t-shirt or taking a knee at a game is symbolic, but what can we do within the communities? And so we saw initiatives even within locally where barbershops were taking the lead in educating folks about vaccines, about the COVID-19 pandemic, and resources available to them during the pandemic that especially in Milwaukee, which was an early hotspot for COVID-19, especially among Black communities in the city, it created and was a benefit in reaching the communities and having these conversations that also led for community leaders to invite members to express themselves about what it is like in Milwaukee to be one of the more over-policed communities in this country.
Yes, and that is something that we have to continue having these conversations, and that we need to make sure we advocate for change. And it sounds like change is something that is definitely on the forefront for Milwaukee. And I know that when you work for The Guardian, you were covering Black diasporas, and I know that the Bucks also have a number of players who represent Black faces across the country and the globe. How is that having an impact on essentially how people see the NBA and its stars?
Well, that's another thing that fits Milwaukee perfectly. Many folks don't know that Milwaukee at one point was the most foreign city in America before, it's being a predecessor to New York City. And at that time, of course, it was mainly European immigrants. Milwaukee has a large Polish, Irish, Italian population, but that legacy of welcoming communities, new communities to Wisconsin and to southeastern Wisconsin and the city more specifically has always been there. Milwaukee has a large Hmong population. Milwaukee has a large Ethiopian and Eritrean population on account of diversity visas and refugee placements. But this has been a community that has said, we will welcome you. And that is the narrative, that is the message that Milwaukee, through the Bucks, have wanted to show. When you looked at nearly the estimated 65,000 fans who were out and about in the city on the night that we won the NBA Finals, myself being one of them, you did not see the most segregated city in America. Yes, you likely saw the white Milwaukeeans, or excuse me, white Wisconsinites who largely live on the outskirts of the city or in its more gentrified eastern parts. But you also saw a community that is Milwaukee 365 or 24/7 when we're not having NBA Finals, when it isn't Packer season with our neighbors to the north or our counterparts, the Milwaukee Brewers. You're seeing the very faces that make up Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is a mostly community of color. And so that is an opportunity for the Milwaukee Bucks organization through their players, through welcoming players like what we saw with Giannis Antetokounmpo coming from Greece and many other players coming from abroad, this welcoming sense that this can be a part of the NBA culture as well as just as much as it is a part of Milwaukee's culture.
Yes, and it's supposed to be a reflection of American culture in terms of having this true melting pot or mixing salad, however they want to say it. And so being able to have that NBA championship be reflective of that is a very beautiful thing. And we only have a few minutes left now, but I'd love to talk about what you are doing now moving forward, as I know a lot of the guests that you have been a reoccurring guest on TYT. So let's talk a little bit about what you are up to now. Please let us know what's coming down the pike for you.
Yeah, so we're looking at, with Insider's Voices of Color, we're going to be looking specifically at the state of Black women. And of course, fittingly, we're having that conversation today as prominent athletes, Black women athletes in the Olympics have decided to take a step forward, prioritize their mental health with Simone Biles. And oftentimes the stigmas that come with Black women taking ownership and agency in the storytelling and leadership of their own lives. And we see that playing out not just in sports, we see that playing out in media, we see that playing out in politics. And we want to further unpack that conversation, unpack what it looks like as a consequence, or even what's at stake when Black women are leading the conversations about policies and initiatives that will impact us specifically and more largely the broader community.
That is a powerful thing. Can you please tell the viewers where they can find you?
Sure, on everything live from Kenya, or you can also follow us at VOC Insider for Voices of Color.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kenya Evelyn.
Thank you for having me.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richey Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week.
The unrest inside of the Black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable.
You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them.
Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any Black person the N-word or target people because they were Black?
Nope.
But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, we crucify bad cops, brother.
Of
bad
course
cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives, mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, brother.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
2.5 years. I just started because she got me into it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew.
So I was immediately in love with the show.
And then I haven't missed a live show since then.
10 times a day, I watched the show in the morning.
Whenever I had a bad day in high school, Young Turks.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
Welcome into TYT's The Conversation. It's Adrienne Lawrence, and this time I have senior news editor at Insider. She manages stories and reporters who cover a diverse range of beats, including politics, communities of color, and much else. Ms. Katie Tubman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so it has been wild with COVID, especially with these new variants coming out, Delta variant, and also with a lot of lawmakers not necessarily looking to enforce mask mandates, particularly Governor Greg Abbott, saying that he's not going to impose another statewide mask mandate. How is this impacting people?
Yeah, incredibly so, considering that the state is seeing a sharp rise in cases and hospitalizations amid the Delta variant being ravaging through the states. People are not handling this well. There is a struggle right now that we're seeing not only in states like Texas, but other red states where there's a pushback against mandates, against restrictions. And right now it seems like there's either the people or the politics at stake here. And so in Texas, we see Greg Abbott, it's so reminiscent of 2020. Around March, we saw the lockdowns happening and then the pushback from Trump and other Republicans saying that reopening should be happening. And we saw Greg Abbott take that route of being one of the people who pushed against staying open, shut down most of the state. But then as the economy took a nosedive, a lot of the conversation started changing. And we saw that reopening phases were starting. And then around the same time this year, just last year in July, Texas had seen a sharp rise, almost a major outbreak is what they called it at the time, of COVID cases. And that pushed the governor to actually about face and go back to restrictions such as easing them or going back a phase or two to make sure that people were safe. Now, this did not end well, of course. We saw that a lot of conservatives, even a handful of local Republican lawmakers had pushed back and even entered lawsuits against the governor for these restrictions. And so we can expect that there's a lesson to be learned on so many fronts, but that we can expect that the governor himself might be a little bit hesitant to repeat last year, whereas we could see some sort of restriction, some sort of lockdown, some sort of mandate. But at the same time, there will be a fierce backlash amongst his party, especially as we saw last year, that happened around this time. And so that is what we're seeing. People are kind of in the throes of what will happen if the Delta variant gets any much worse than it is right now.
Yes, and it seems to be very much the problem in a lot of places. It's my understanding recently that there was a report that came out that essentially around the area of Disney World, they're experiencing a spike in COVID cases. And a lot of these places that have opened up and that are exposing people, do you think that there's gonna possibly be a happy medium where some places will be able to stay open and others won't necessarily, or that we're going to go back almost into that nationwide quarantine that impacted a lot of the nation?
All right, it'll be really tough to see a nationwide quarantine happen again, especially with the pushback against so many states that are Republican and GOP led. I will say that I was at Disneyland and Disney World not so long ago, about a week or two, and it was really, really hard to keep a mask on, to keep your distance, because everyone is so excited to get out there and be outside of their homes. At the same time, we're seeing pushback from DeSantis to say that there will be no mask mandate, there will be no more restrictions, and there are many, many people who put him in a high approval ratings that say that he is looking out for the health of Floridians and that he's also looking out for the health of the state economy. And so we probably will not see any type of large scale quarantine happen. It will depend on sadly, how far worse can this Delta variant ravage states like Florida and like Texas.
All right, so clearly people prefer to play politics over just basic science. But in terms of the possibility, worst case scenario, in terms of getting people to act, do you think that we'd have to suffer at basically having other countries lock us out permanently before we really get the message that we have to do what we need to do?
Well, other countries are looking at the U.S. How's it that a variant that had taken off in another country like India is now seeing that the U.S. is beating out that spread, and we are having far more cases, far more faster transmission rates. I think other countries are paying attention and seeing how the U.S. is handling it. Who knows if it comes to the point where the U.S. will have to be blocked out before it sits down and hunkers down and figures out what to do about getting everyone on board, especially around vaccinations. That's also reminiscent inside of Florida right now. We're hearing from DeSantis, the Republican governor there, saying vaccines help, vaccines save lives. At the same time, pushing against any mask wearing, any social restrictions that might be coming as recommendations from public health officials, from experts, from other politicians who worry about the safety of the population. So we're seeing that struggle constantly happening, especially in these GOP-led states where that's where the spikes were taking place. And that's where the constant struggle is being seen between, well, what will it take for us to really shut down? And will it take pushing forward with vaccines? Or will it take seeing another nosedive in our economy to get there? Because right now, the US economy is rebounding and there's faith in that. And there are a lot of people pushing for that. And so if there are any lockdown conversations on the table, they might be being pushed to the side.
Yeah, definitely. As a capitalistic culture that we seem to readily enjoy in our nation, it definitely seems like capitalism is king over the lives and the livelihood of others. So we're going to see how that works. And as you're watching and covering a lot of the issues that are kind of collateral or almost tangential to COVID-19, what do you think is being missed the most that a lot of people aren't necessarily seeing, but it's clearly an offshoot of this pandemic?
Right now, what's being missed is the tracking and the data. The data isn't supporting a lot of the claims that are either being used by Democrats and Republicans to make either case for staying open, for boosting vaccinations, for any of the sides. The data isn't there. We don't know how many people are in the crossover of either they have natural immunity, which has been touted by Republican governors, to how many of them are actually vaccinated. We don't know what a threshold is for herd immunity, even though states like Texas are saying that we are almost there or we're so close. There is no data supporting that. That is where we're going to start falling off. There was so much tracking in 2020, and a lot of it wasn't even done by local government or state governments. A lot of it was done by smaller organizations and groups and scientists and doctors and experts. Now that we've seen reopenings happening at the start of the year, a lot of restrictions ease up, a lot of that data has been lagging behind. And if we don't know, if we don't catch up to what's truly happening, what's the full picture of what it looks like to have a COVID variant ravage communities throughout the country, if we don't have that true picture, we can't actually act effectively going forward. And we can only expect that it's going to get worse before we fully know what it looks like out there on a people level. And so that is what we're missing. And I think that's what people are turning towards. What is the information saying? What is the data saying? Whether you support it as a Democrat or Republican or someone on the left or the right or who's anti-vax or not, we don't have enough information right now. And it seems like we're falling behind.
Yes, it definitely seems that in addition to having a capitalistic culture, we do seem to like to perpetuate ignorance, keeping people in the dark because they're easier to control. So that seems to be something that we are seeing with these numbers being fudged or not necessarily being whole and true. And so as we move forward into potentially 2022, what do you think is the potential most shocking thing that we could possibly see?
The most shocking would get to the same rates of death of cases that we saw in 2020. We are seeing records being set right now in certain states that we've already spoken about. But to even get back to that number, to get as high as we were as last year, to see those kinds of hospitalization rates, to see hospitals struggling, to see nursing homes struggling, to see young people struggling too at the same time who aren't actually able to get vaccines, and younger people are getting COVID. To even get back to that place that we were last year would be heartbreaking almost to go into 2022 and beyond that. But right now, even looking at 2021, it doesn't seem so hopeful for folks. And that's why I said the information, having the data out there is going to help. And it's not going to be along party lines. It's just going to be about people and whether they're going to be in a healthy state come fall and then come next year.
Yes, and I would imagine having these kind of midterm elections will also be problematic in terms of people not necessarily wanting to acknowledge the problems that are ongoing. Yep, and that could be very, very detrimental. So we only have about a few minutes left. Is there anything you want to tout or to promote in any way that you'd like our viewers to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I would say definitely keep an eye out for we're doing a great job at Insider of tracking COVID cases and reporting them as much as possible, as fast as possible. I would say keep an eye out for anyone and anywhere, whatever dashboard you use. I would say look at them, ask your states, ask your local government, where can you get accurate information, because that's what we're gonna be needing going forward. And that's what everyday people are going to need to make the best decision for themselves. Because a lot of these states are saying that it's gonna be on the individual, it's gonna be personal responsibility, but you can't really fault people for taking full responsibility for their actions if they are not informed. And so I say that keep an eye out for the information wherever it is that it's coming from, but always ask the question, who is it serving in certain perspectives? Who is it helping, who is it hurting, as you look for that kind of data?
Absolutely, that analytical framework, we need that from people. And can you please tell the viewers where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on insider.com, Insider News, on Twitter. We're there. We're constantly sharing this information. You can also find me at Katia Tubman on Twitter as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions from our readers, your viewers who might even actually be thinking about, what will 2021, the rest of 2021 look like? Where should I go for information? How can I make the best choices for myself and my community?
Katia Tubman, Senior News Editor at Insider. Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Thank you.
to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. It's Wednesday, so we'll be doing the first hour solo. Just want to do a quick apology for our technical issues. We've got them all squared away. Sorry for the late start, but we're here and we're gonna have an awesome show. Second hour, John Iadarola will be joining me, the Dragon Daddy, the host of The Damage Report. And we're gonna talk about a lot of different issues, including right-wingers pretending as if we don't have a ton of evidence regarding what happened in our nation's capital on January 6th. Laura Ingraham is accusing Capitol Police and DC Metro Police of just acting as they're testifying before the House Select Committee, which of course is investigating the the whole awful situation that occurred on January 6th. But before we get to any of that, I do want to encourage you guys to like and share the stream. It helps to get the message out. There's this algorithm situation. Apparently the algorithm loves it when you like the stream, loves it when you share the stream. That kind of engagement helps, to get more eyeballs on the show. And we always really appreciate it when you guys help us out in that way. So with that said, why don't we get to our first story? It's a pretty heavy one, but it's important to discuss the treatment of whistleblowers in this country because, as I often say, seems like all the incentives are in the wrong places. So, the whistleblower who informed Americans about the US drone war has been sentenced to 45 months in prison. Now, the Biden administration had called for 9 years, but the federal judge in this case decided to sentence Daniel Hale to a little under 4 years. Now, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with who Daniel Hale was, he is in fact the one who leaked classified information about drone warfare after leaving the military. He was in the Air Force, and essentially he was the one who would point out the targets for drone strikes. And then he realized, I am not in favor of what's happening right now. This is wrong, and I need to make it stop. I need to make sure that journalists know what's going on, that the American people know what's going on with these drone strikes. And when you look at the numbers, when you look at the casualties, especially when it comes to innocent civilians, I mean, anyone who would think of Daniel Hale as the bad guy in this story is just absolutely wrong. So let me give you some details, and then we've got a video for you. So the documents included a report finding that reliance on deadly attacks was undermining intelligence gathering. During one 5-month stretch of an operation in Afghanistan, the documents revealed nearly 90% of the people killed were not the intended targets. Hale also discovered, or disclosed, I should say, the criteria for placing a person on the terrorism watch list. Information that Muslim civil rights lawyers said in a letter to the court had helped them challenge the constitutionality of that system. And when you think about the role of whistleblowers in this nation's history, whether it has to do with the foreign policy that we carry out abroad or what happens within our own borders, it's really information that's important to the American people in order to hold those in positions of power accountable. But those in positions of power, of course, want to rain terror on whistleblowers. They want to ensure that they get charged with violations of the Espionage Act. They want to ensure that they're imprisoned, sometimes in solitary confinement, which was the case with Chelsea Manning. And I am worried about the treatment of Daniel Hale in prison. I wish that he wasn't sentenced to any prison time at all. But of course, doesn't matter which administration we're talking about these days, whether it's Obama, Trump, and now Biden, they certainly want whistleblowers to pay the price for what they've done in disclosing critical information to journalists and the American people. Now, I want to go to this next video that features Democracy Now! And their, I think, pretty well done and comprehensive description of who Hale was and how important his actions were. Let's take a look.
Hale was enlisted in the U.S. Air Force from 2009 to 2013, during which time he worked with the National Security Agency and JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Task Force at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, where he helped identify targets for assassination. He later worked as a contractor for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. In March, Daniel Hale pleaded guilty to one count of violating the World War I-era Espionage Act for leaking documents exposing the drone program. He'll be sentenced Tuesday. In a handwritten letter to Judge Liam O'Grady, Hale describes feeling immense guilt for his role in the U.S. assassination program. He wrote, quote, "Not a day goes by that I don't question the justification for my actions." Hale went on to write, "To say that the period of my life spent serving in the United States Air Force had an impression on me would be an understatement. It's more accurate to say that it irreversibly transformed my identity as an American."
I mean, it is kind of incredible when you think about the true traitors to the country that are still celebrated in the United States. I mean, we still have Confederate soldier statues in this country on public land. We still have a pretty significant portion of this country celebrating the Confederacy, even now. Remember, the Confederacy was against the United States because they wanted to maintain slavery. And, people celebrate Confederates, and you look at someone like Daniel Hale, and he's considered a traitor who deserves time in prison. It's just. But speaking of US District Judge Liam O'Grady, he did in fact sentence him to 45 months in prison for violating the Espionage Act, saying his disclosure of documents went beyond his, quote, courageous and principled stance on drones. In fact, during his decision, the judge said, quote, "You are not being prosecuted for speaking out about the drone program killing innocent people. You have been a whistleblower without, you could have been a whistleblower without taking any of these documents." So he stole the documents, he leaked the documents to Jeremy Scahill, a reporter with The Intercept, and that's what he is being prosecuted and now sentenced for. But I would argue that the American people wouldn't know about incredibly important details of that drone war had it not been for the whistleblower. I mean, Americans would be in the dark about the awful nature of the drone program and the number of innocent civilians who die as a result of those drone strikes. So to say, oh, well, you could have spoken out against this, but you didn't have to steal documents. You didn't have to, yeah, but going out and saying that, hey, we're doing this and we're doing that, people are gonna want evidence, they're gonna want proof. And having access to those documents allows a journalist like Jeremy Scahill to do the reporting that's necessary for people to know about our wrongdoings abroad. But like I said, the incentives are always in the wrong place. The worst things get incentivized. Bad people get rewarded over and over again in the United States, but someone like Daniel Hale, who really risked his own freedom in order to get this information out to us. He's the bad guy, he's the traitor to the country. I would argue he's the opposite of a traitor to the country. He's someone who actually believes in what this country is supposed to stand for, right? We're not supposed to engage in cruel and inhumane acts, but we do it all the time. We do it abroad all the time. We sometimes do it in our own borders. But Daniel Hale's the bad guy. Well, I also want to go to this next clip. It's from a documentary that was made about the drone war and also about Daniel Hale. And in it, he spoke about what motivated him to do what he did. So let's watch.
The people who defend drones and defend the way that they're used, they always say, they protect American lives by not putting them in harm's way. But what they really do is they just embolden commanders. They embolden decision makers because there is no threat. There is no immediate consequence. They can do this strike and they can potentially kill this person that they're so desperate to get and to eliminate because of how dangerous, potentially dangerous they could be to the US. But if it just so happens that they don't kill that person or that some other people are involved in the strike and get killed as well, there's no consequence for it. When it comes to high value targeting, every mission is to go after one person at a time. But anybody else that's killed in that strike is just blanketly assumed to be an associate of the targeted individual. So as long as they can reasonably identify that all of the people in the field of view of the camera are military-aged males, meaning anybody who's believed to be of age 16 or older, they are a legitimate target.
Hey, as long as it's a male, 16 years or older, they're a target, right? Even if they didn't engage in any wrongdoing, even if the intelligence community isn't naming or specifically identifying people who are dying, right, as terrorists, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we do drone strikes to take them out. It doesn't matter. I mean, look, I get that some people don't care about this issue, but when we talk about why there's hostility toward the United States in other countries, I think it's important for us to know what we're doing, because if any other country did drone strikes against us that killed innocent civilians within our borders, we would be outraged. Americans would probably be out for blood. Not all of them, but a significant portion of the country would want vengeance. They want justice. And in this case, you have the United States military taking out innocent civilians and wondering why it is that there's hostility toward the United States, thinking that we're above the law, we're allowed to do whatever we want, and destroying innocent people's lives is totally fine. We're spreading democracy, everyone. Now, what were the arguments made by prosecutors? Prosecutors think that, well, Hale actually put US soldiers' lives at risk, and that's what we hear every single time a whistleblower is being prosecuted or talked about, whether it's Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, in this case, Daniel Hale. But they can't name a single person who was harmed physically or otherwise due to these leaks. Not a single person. They just get to make that argument and go out of their way to ensure that someone who did the right thing, especially in this case, is put away in prison. He didn't get 9 years, but he got almost 4 years in prison. I do want to also read a quick statement from him. This is from Daniel Hale, July 27th, 2021. This is what he said in court. I think it's a powerful statement. I'm here because I stole something that was never mine to take, precious human life. For that, I was compensated and given a medal. I couldn't keep living in a world in which people pretended that things weren't happening that were. Please, Your Honor, forgive me for taking papers instead of human lives. The incentives are in the wrong place. Valuing human lives over the feelings of generals and military men in the Pentagon or our own politicians, it's not good. You don't really get many incentives in doing that. You get punished for that. And we keep seeing that happen over and over again with whistleblowers. Edward Snowden uncovered and informed the American people about the government indiscriminately spying on us. He can't come back to the United States. He is considered an enemy of this country for telling us that our rights, our privacy rights, were being violated by the federal government. The American people can't hold the government accountable unless they're fully informed about what the government is up to. I get that the government doesn't want to be embarrassed. I get that they don't want any accountability in regard to the murder, the slaughter of innocent civilians abroad. But if we're to live in a real democracy, we need to be informed about what our government is doing. And heroes like Daniel Hale put everything on the line to let us know what's really going on. And for that, all I can do is thank him, but at the same time feel incredibly embarrassed that the Biden administration pushed for him to be in prison for what he did. He doesn't deserve time in prison. He deserves to be a free man, period. We got to take a break. When we come back, we have more news for you guys, including A little later, Charlie Kirk has some thoughts on Simone Biles. I have some thoughts about him, so we'll talk about what he thinks. And Joe Manchin happens to be incredibly corrupt, but the media is ignoring that. We're not going to ignore that here. We're going to connect the dots in regard to the infrastructure bill and parse out what's really going on. So come right back. We've got that story for you and more. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our first social break of the day. Just want to remind you all that we are looking to work with our members, TYT members, to organize and carry out pressure campaigns or any other strategy that we can think of to really do what's necessary to get lawmakers to focus on our priorities. So an easy way to do that, in lieu of labor unions, which is incredibly important, is to organize our members. So we're focusing on that project right now, and we would love your help. If you'd like to become a member, you can become one by just clicking on that join button if you're watching on YouTube, or you can go to tyt.com/join to become a member. Not only will you help to make this show independent and sustainable, you'll also be part of a change machine that we're trying to build right now. So just go to tyt.com/change for more information about the organizing that we're talking about here. And if you want to become a member, tyt.com/join. Also, our TYT members on YouTube get all sorts of perks. One of those perks are emojis, or one of those perks is emojis, not are emojis. That was bad grammar, okay? But I caught it. So anyway, if you are on YouTube, just click on the community tab and you can vote on what our next emoji will be. So, all right. Okay, all right, so Anna Salt, 0%, exacerbated Anna, 0%, and Anna Love, 0%. But you can vote, Polls close Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, polls will be closed. I'm very curious to see what you guys are in favor of. All right, let's go to our member comments, starting with Little Mac McGee, who says, quick question, I love the Ask Me Anything yesterday, which we did for our top tier members. But it was so fast. What are the odds that you can make it 1 hour? Just kidding. Yeah, we'll discuss. Let's move on to working class heroes are what we need. Michael Flynn gets a pardon. Drone whistleblowers get 45 months, and Biden wanted 9 years. I know. Yeah, it is pretty incredible. Like I said, bad behavior keeps getting rewarded, and I'm personally getting real tired of that. I think it's the #1 issue right now that's been weighing me down. Just watching bad actors everywhere get rewarded for bad behavior. Moving on to our YouTube moving on to our super chats. We have Matthew H, who says, whenever I hear music during the break, I think I'm getting my local forecast from the Weather Channel. Bart Kyle giving you a thumbs up. And Lion Rumble says, love Anna, Cenk, and the TYT alumni keep fighting the good fight. I promise you we will, even when we're exhausted, because we love you guys. We want a better world, so you can count on us. Let's go back to the show. Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian here with you. I'm gonna read a quick comment, or it's a question from a member of our Twitch community. If you're curious about our Twitch community, you can check out our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/TYT. In fact, we've got all sorts of fun, sometimes saucy content on there. It's Wednesday, which means Happy Half Hour airs immediately after our bonus episode for our members. So definitely check that out. It's hosted by Brett Ehrlich and it's a lot of fun. Recovering Pagan says, probably not relevant to any of today's topics, but what's everyone's opinion on espresso machine versus pod machine? I have a Dulce Gusto and it's super convenient. So I don't know what that is. I'm unfamiliar with it, but the pods are wasteful. You probably shouldn't go with the pod machines. However, I think there are reusable pods you can buy. So look into that if you're interested in the pod machine. And there is a massive downside with espresso machines, which I have one. My husband gifted me with a very nice espresso machine a few years ago. I clean that espresso machine. I clean that espresso machine. I can't stand it anymore. I'm so tired of cleaning it. I'm so tired of the damn espresso grounds. They get everywhere. It's messy. It's dirty. Just be prepared for that if you're thinking about getting, a non-pod espresso machine. Okay, now that it's out of the way, let's talk about Joe Manchin. Hopefully I can speak a little clearly today. I don't know why I'm slurring my words. I promise you I'm not drunk or anything like that. But Manchin's in the news, so is Sinema. We'll get you the details on the Sinema story because it just broke. But conservative Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is warning that if the Senate fails in passing the bipartisan infrastructure deal, he's unwilling to be supportive of the more robust reconciliation version of the infrastructure deal. Now, what are the differences? Okay, well, the bipartisan deal only really includes physical infrastructure, basically physical infrastructure that Republican lawmakers do in fact want because their corporate donors want it. You see, when it comes to commerce, you actually need infrastructure that's not crumbling. So they want to ensure that they provide the goodies for their corporate donors and sure, maybe some of their constituents as well. But they're not interested in human infrastructure. They're not interested in helping to compensate people who are engaging in elder care, for instance. No funding for child care. I mean, the right wing loves to force women to have children that they might not want. Right? They love to regulate women's bodies, but when actual children are born and their families need help, no. So no social safety net for you, no childcare for you. You can buzz off. That's the GOP. And guess what? Corrupt Joe Manchin and other conservative so-called Democrats in the Senate are empowering these goons. That's exactly what's happening right now. And the most frustrating part about it is that the media will not tell you why that is. You keep hearing over and over again, well, Manchin just wants bipartisanship. Manchin just likes bipartisanship. No, it's not about bipartisanship. And I'll connect the dots in just a minute, but first, here's what Senator Joe Manchin had to say. I would say if the bipartisan infrastructure deal falls apart, everything falls apart. Both of them are extremely important. When one falls apart, how do you move the other one? It's not that difficult. I mean, you take the physical infrastructure that's in the bipartisan bill, you bake it into the more robust and much better reconciliation version of the bill, and then you pass it with a simple majority in the Senate. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. But he's not interested in that. And I'll tell you why. He says, I think there's a lot of good things in the reconciliation bill I really want to work on, but we haven't spent the time on that. The bipartisan one's ready to go. This one's ready to go. He's eager to pass the bipartisan bill. Because look, the bipartisan bill also doesn't focus on something that he doesn't like, and it's the climate action. Because Joe Manchin would have you believe that he's just concerned about jobs in West Virginia. And look, that might be true. There might be hell to pay if some constituents who work in the coal industry lose their jobs as a result of, the country finally moving or shifting toward renewable energies. But the reality is that Joe Manchin doesn't just benefit politically from dirty fossil fuels. He also benefits financially, directly. And we learned some details about that just today. In fact, according to the most recent financial disclosure, Manchin gained nearly $500,000 last year, $492,000 to be exact, due to his non-public shares in a coal company called, it's a terrible name, Enersystems, which records show is a contractor for a power plant in the state's north that burns waste coal. Meanwhile, Manchin's 2020 income for being a senator was $174,000. So let that sink in for a second. He's earning more money from dirty coal than he is representing the people of West Virginia as a senator. The incentives are in the wrong place. There needs to be laws that prevent lawmakers from being invested in individual stocks or invested in these types of companies, period. He is receiving a significant amount of his income, most of his income, it appears, from the coal industry. And we're not even talking about what he receives in the form of campaign contributions from fossil fuel companies. In fact, Manchin gave control to, or control of Enersystems to his son back in 2000. This is very Trumpian, by the way. He years ago moved his holdings in the company into a blind trust in order to comply with federal rules. Yet that doesn't prevent him from personally profiting. That's why I say it's Trumpian. This is the exact same thing that Trump did once he became president. Since becoming a Democratic US Senator in 2010, Manchin's total income from Enersystems has topped $4.5 million. I don't know. There are some things that I'd want to work on with the reconciliation version of the bill. You know, climate action, I don't really like that. It's gonna hurt my profits, my personal profits. That's what this is about. Wakey media, I can't stand the constant nonsense about, well, you know, he's coming from a conservative state, so he's got to reach across the aisle. No. He's got a vested interest in defeating the reconciliation bill, in not supporting the reconciliation bill. There's more. Manchin, by the way, chairs the worst committee in the Senate. Considering the conflict of interest here, he chairs the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which is a joke. Obviously, there's a conflict of interest there, but there are no laws preventing this from happening. That's the problem. Due to impurities, by the way, of the waste coal Granttown power plant. So due to impurities in the waste coal Granttown power plant burns to generate electricity, it releases more sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide per unit of energy than any other of the state's coal plants. So this is incredibly bad for the environment. But it doesn't matter. He doesn't care as long as he's profiting from this. So if that plant were to shut down, by the way, it would halt over 900,000 tons of climate warming carbon dioxide emissions that Granttown releases annually. And I also want to talk a little bit about how much money Joe Manchin receives from the fossil fuel industry in the form of campaign donations. In fact, recently, Julian Castro was speaking to MSNBC about a fundraiser that Manchin went to in Texas. Let's learn a little bit more about that June fundraiser.
Right now, we've got this huge reconciliation package, the infrastructure bill. There's a big question about how aggressive it will be in the climate aspects. And here you have what would be the 50th vote for this. As the Texas Tribune reports, the host committee includes titans of the Texas oil and gas industry, many of whom donate almost exclusively to Republicans. Some of these donors make occasional contributions to Democrats who are either moderate or serve on committees with oversight of the energy sector. It gives you a little window into what the sort of climate hawk forces are up against.
Oh, it does. And I mean, Manchin's there chairing the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate. The letter that went out, the fundraising letter, said that Joe Manchin has been a good friend of the industry since he was governor of West Virginia. And I'm sure it's going to get a lot of buy-in from oil and gas executives. And the way that this ties into the voting rights part of it is, I bet what they're telling Joe Manchin at this high-price fundraiser is, hey, look, Senator, you really are the reasonable guy here in the Senate. You're the only thing holding back the world from AOC and the socialists and X, Y, and Z. They're gonna butter him up and make him think, hey, you gotta hold the line.
Oh, they butter him up all right. In fact, remember, we also had that video featuring one of the top lobbyists for ExxonMobil just disclosing the fact that they do quite a bit of campaign donations, legalized bribery, to people like Senator Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, who just today shared with the American people that she opposes the $3.5 trillion reconciliation infrastructure bill. She claims that it's too expensive, it's too much money. She's a real fiscal conservative, that Kyrsten Sinema. She's not at all influenced by that corporate money. I mean, what a clown. But more importantly, the members of the media who buy that line, members of the media who think, no, these are good people, they want unity, duh. Those people shouldn't be employed as journalists. Because there are giant conflicts of interest here. There's a huge problem with legalized bribery. And when you ignore that issue, you lie to the American people about what's really at play, about what really influences the decisions of these lawmakers. They don't serve us, they serve themselves. There's a reason why lawmakers leave Congress a lot wealthier than they came in. And it's because they can be invested in individual stocks. They can be invested in businesses like this coal company that Manchin's involved in, brings in $500,000 a year. He's living large, but he'll lie to you straight in your face and tell you that he's doing this because he cares about bipartisanship. He doesn't care about bipartisanship at all. Manchin also has been, hinting that he's not going to be supportive of the infrastructure bill for a while now. In fact, Manchin in June told a utility conference he's not a fan of President Joe Biden's plan to address the climate emergency by cutting US emissions in half by 2030 and hitting 100% clean power in electric utilities by 2035. In fact, he said, quote, "I am concerned that the timetable they are setting is a very aggressive timetable." Cool, you should tell people who are experiencing severe flooding or severe drought how you feel about that aggressive timetable. People are already dying due to climate change. He doesn't care. He's bringing in $500,000 a year with his ties to this coal company. That's what he cares about. But the media won't let you know about it. Luckily, we will. So next time someone tries to sell you that BS about the importance of bipartisanship, give them the middle finger and then show them the numbers, because that's what this is about. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. sequence of ads where you have this photo of Rashad Richey, and he's like smirking into the camera. He's like, oh yeah. And then the second like full screen is of John Iadarola for the damage report. He looks like he's gotten beaten up by Dr. Richey. Like that's honestly what it seems like to me. But anyway, by the way, Dr. Richey, he's not beating up anyone other than some of those right wingers who are dumb enough to debate him on a show. Let's just keep it real. Anyway, all right, some super chat comments for you. We have someone's birthday. Oh yeah, so Suriram. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I feel so awful. But I think I can say your last name, Venkatara. Happy birthday. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. It's a doozy. It's a tough one, but thank you for watching and happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day. Simon Brock says, on behalf of the wonderful peeps in the member chat, thank you, Anna, for your passion and integrity. Thank you. I really appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. Retro 4K says, you need people in positions of power like Nina Turner, absolutely, to call this out and make the corruption difficult to ignore. Corporate Dems know this. Yes, corporate Dems do know it, and corporate Dems do not want Nina Turner to win Ohio's 11th district seat. So we need to support her. We need to ensure that Shontel Brown, the neoliberal fave, doesn't beat her in the Democratic primary for that seat. So we're gonna do a pretty long segment on Nina Turner on the show tomorrow. In fact, I interviewed Dr. Cornel West today and asked him about her and that race, and we'll have a snippet of that interview for you tomorrow as well. So definitely tune in. By the way, the full interview will be available on weekends, the show I host for Jacobin, on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Just go to youtube.com/JacobinMag, where you can find the show that I do with Nando Vila for Jacobin. All right, moving over to our Twitch community, we have Brandy Lou, who gifted 5 subs. Sama Lynn and Sama Lynn the Kind Dragon, I like that, also gifted 5 subs. Daisy Dragon gifted 3 subs. One Chance gave 1,000 bits, and Irie Man 420 bits. Thank you, thank you. We love you. Let's get back to the show. Welcome back to TYT. Let's get to our next story. Home Depot's billionaire co-founder, Ken Langone, had a little bit of a meltdown over Elizabeth Warren's proposal for a wealth tax. In fact, he had the meltdown in front of Elizabeth Warren on national television, which means we're gonna drink some rich man's tears. It's time for When Rich Men Cry.
I care. That's it.
Look, say what you want to say about Elizabeth Warren. You can't take away the fact that this woman has led to Leon Cooperman having that wonderful cry fest on CNBC. And now we're gonna talk about Ken Langone, a huge Trump supporter, billionaire, and someone who apparently doesn't like the idea of paying taxes. So let's get to the first part of his meltdown, where he just thinks he pays way too much in taxes, but he tries to use a little trick here. Pay attention.
Tax is negative compound interest. It's what it is. You're right. I made all the money. I paid the government what I owed them. What I had left, I put at risk. I could have lost it all. But I paid my share. I have a bigger issue for the senator that I think I would hope she would address that to me is apple pie and motherhood. Senator.
Could we talk about the wealth tax just for a minute before we change subjects here?
Senator, I have an easy one for you, and you're going to be shocked that I'm bringing it up from a fat cat Wall Street guy. How do you rationalize giving me $3,000 a month check every month with all my wealth? Why don't you people have the courage to address entitlements as to what should no longer be an entitlement? I shouldn't get Social Security. Tell me why I should get a check and my wife gets another $1,000 on top of that. Take it away from me. Have the courage to do it. I know it's the third rail of politics, but do it.
So let's start with the wealth tax. That's where we were.
You don't want to address the issue. You don't want to address the issue of how I'm getting $4 grand a month from the government and I shouldn't be getting it?
Can I answer some of these questions?
Sure, please.
All right, thank you. So I'll start with the first one, and that was the question about the wealth tax.
Did you guys catch that little wink right there where he thought that little rant was like perfect? He's like, got him. If you missed the wink, I'll show you what it looked like in slow-mo.
Questions?
Sure, please.
All right, thank you. So I'll start with the first one, and that was the question.
What a goon, what an absolute goon. Now, Elizabeth Warren handled it well, so we'll get to her video in just a second, but I do want to note something. Social Security, which he claims he's receiving $3,000 from and then later said $4,000. He doesn't even know what the number is. He's a billionaire. So to be fair, he's right in that money isn't money that he needs. But it's important to have universal programs because universal programs are far more popular. Universal programs are a lot more difficult to scale back because everyone's receiving it. Everybody likes money, everyone does. And when you look at the public polling on Social Security, it's abundantly clear the majority of Americans love it and only a tiny percentage of Americans want to scale it back or cut the program. So what he's doing there is trying to make it appear as though, oh, this is the Social Security program. I mean, it's waste. It's waste because a billionaire like me shouldn't be receiving that money. But the way Elizabeth Warren answered that question, I think was perfect. So let's take a look at that.
And you ask about Social Security. I think Social Security really is the thing that is structured differently. It's structured as an insurance policy. And you paid in year after year after year. And part of the contract was if you would pay in, you would get this kind of return on the back end. It's not somebody's welfare. It's not somebody's charity. It was an agreement that every employee in the country who is eligible for Social Security paid into and gets a return at the back end.
She's right about that. Now, as we know, wealthy people have all sorts of tax loopholes that they can take advantage of. But for the most part, we all pay into the Social Security system. There's a cap in terms of the amount of income that gets taxed for Social Security. So if you're a high earner at a certain point, it's somewhere around, I think, last time I checked, I think $130-something thousand. Past that amount, you don't pay into Social Security anymore. But the reason why it's a universal program is because it's something that everyone pays into. And so I think she answered that perfectly. But I would have also added the fact that universal programs are super popular. Let me give you those numbers right now. So first off, it's incredibly important to the majority of Americans because the majority of Americans, sadly, rely on Social Security as a huge portion of their income during retirement. I say sadly because Social Security isn't enough to retire on for most people. And to know that such a huge percentage of Americans rely on that as their major source of income after they retire just gives you a sense of how necessary it is, but also how it needs to be a little more robust. We need to offer more to Americans, retirees in this program. Now, 57% of retirees indicated in our April of 2019 survey, this is from Gallup, by the way, this year, that Social Security is a major source of income in their retirement, eclipsing by far the second and third sources, retirement accounts such as 401ks and IRAs and work-sponsored pension plans. Look, 401ks, IRAs or IRAs, depending on how you like to say it, they're tied to risk. So you might be approaching retirement and the market can completely collapse and you lose a giant portion of your retirement. And I mean, that's what happened in 2008 for so many Americans. Social Security is not tied to risk. It's tied to how much you've contributed to the system. So if you've been taxed at the maximum amount for Social Security, you'll get the maximum payout once you're ready to retire. But even then, as I mentioned, Social Security isn't robust enough for people to comfortably retire on. But as I mentioned, 47% of Americans rely on that as their main source of income when they retire. Pew Research Center reported that 74% of Americans say that Social Security benefits should not be reduced in any way. And previous Pew research found that only 6% favored cutting government spending on Social Security. A Marist NPR PBS poll found last year, this is an older study, by the way, so it's not last year, this is from 2018 specifically, found in 2018 that 6 in 10 Americans would prefer to reverse the 2017 tax bill, otherwise known as tax cuts for the rich, rather than cut entitlement programs like Social Security if necessary to reduce the deficit. So that's really the situation here. When Ken Langone is like, why don't you cut Social Security? It's because it's political suicide. Cutting Social Security does not poll well with Democrats, certainly doesn't poll well with Republicans, doesn't poll well with Americans. They want to maintain that program. It is a popular, universal program. So while Ken Langone is trying to play that little trick of like, but I'm rich and I shouldn't be getting that money. I mean, he could reject it. He could reject it, but he doesn't. Because it's not really about him wanting to reject the money. It's about him wanting to avoid paying into Social Security. And remember, it's not just getting taxed for Social Security. If you're a business owner, you pay payroll taxes. Payroll taxes also fund Social Security. He don't like that. You don't like that at all, okay? So let's get to one more video featuring Elizabeth Warren and Ken Langone that I thought was fascinating.
Let's look at someone like Jeff Bezos, who is worth $1 bazillion. He has not paid taxes on all of that wealth. Don't describe it that way. In fact, Jeff Bezos, many years, has either paid nothing in taxes or has paid about 1%. Why? Because his income is very, very small, but he continues to grow his wealth through all of his Amazon stock. And how does he then fund a lifestyle like he does? Not by cashing in Amazon stock, but by borrowing against it. Right now, we have a tax system, because it focuses principally on wealth, that actually doesn't capture the folks at the very top. It makes middle class folks pay, it makes working class folks pay, but it doesn't make those at the top pay. A wealth tax is an opportunity to say, if you're at the very, very top, you have to make a contribution too.
Listen, I don't have much to add to what she said there, other than I like the fact that she spoke to him like he was a child, because he acts like a child. She has to talk slowly, she has to soften her voice, because he's acting like a baby. He's crying like a baby on national television, even though he is a billionaire, even though he lives comfortably, even though he has been able to thrive in a system that is rigged in his favor. The idea of paying more into this system, providing more opportunity for others, just leads to a temper tantrum on national television for Ken Langone. He can't even sit still and listen while Senator Warren is speaking to him. Act like a child, you're gonna get treated like a child. And then you're gonna get made fun of on this show, especially when you act like a child like that, when you're crying on national television as a billionaire. It's just pathetic. Speaking of children, let's move on to Meghan McCain. Because I actually really enjoyed her commentary about hustle culture. I didn't expect it. I thought I was gonna dunk on her, but no, she's actually right here. Meghan McCain recently weighed in on Americans and their obsession to hustle, right? Hustle culture is something that definitely grates on my nerves. And I didn't expect it to grate on Meghan McCain's nerves, because to be quite honest with you, I didn't think that she was much of a hustler, but she sees herself as someone who's worked really, really hard, feels incredibly burnt out, and is pulling away from working to focus on her family. She's decided to step down from The View. I believe this is her last week there. And so she opened up to People magazine about this and said this. Well, 36-year-old exiting co-host of The View made an emotional plea via Instagram on Sunday to stop glamorizing overworking and burnout, which she has admittedly battled. So, okay, let's put aside her workload for a second and just applaud the fact that yes, yeah, people are burnt out and we need to stop glamorizing overworking, right? First one in the office, last one out of the office. Let's give them a giant pat on the back and underpay them. No, let's stop celebrating this. This is not healthy. We need to push for, fight for actual balance in people's lives. And when I say balance, I'm not talking about working on multiple projects equally in a 24-hour period. I'm talking about balance between work and play, work and family. And what hustle culture essentially does is it pressures us to overwork, burn ourselves out. And if something doesn't go well in our careers, it creates a culture that allows for you to be the bad guy who it's your fault. You know, it's the myth of personal responsibility. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't hustle hard enough. You didn't stay after you were off the clock longer. You know, you should have been in the office even though you weren't getting paid for it. That kind of stuff. It's toxic and it's harmful. It's shocking that this comment is coming from Meghan McCain, who still identifies as someone who's part of the Republican Party. But what she's saying here is right. We should not glamorize overworking and burnout. So let me read you the full Instagram post. She says, we need to stop glamorizing overworking. Please, the absence of sleep, good diet, exercise, relaxation, and time with friends and family isn't something to be applauded. Too many people wear their burnout as a badge of honor, and it needs to change. Yeah, it needs to change, absolutely. So if you come across Gary Vee, and I know I'm picking on Gary Vee, he's probably the most prominent member of hustle culture. Just don't buy what he's selling. Don't drink this Kool-Aid because it's toxic, it's harmful, and you're doing something that's actually pretty counterproductive for your own health, and I would argue even your own career, because it creates a situation where you can be taken advantage of at work. With that said though, here's Gary Vee, here's what hustle culture really is. I did a lengthier segment about this on the show Weekends for Jacobin. Check that out, youtube.com/JacobinMag. But here he is, the one and only Gary Vee.
There's so many people here that are just not patient, and you're not patient. You know, the youngsters aren't patient because they have chips on their shoulder, because they want to prove to mom and dad that they're right and they're going to do it their way. And the second they start doing their process, they've got the pressure on them. They haven't made it yet. This is all about shortcuts versus the long game. I want to build the biggest building in town ever by just building the biggest building in town, while I think most people try to tear down everybody else's building. So I think positivity and good is practical advice to building an empire. And I want to be the poster child of the person that built the biggest, baddest empire and did it by being a good dude along the way. You need to outwork the people that have money. There's 3 variables, 3 pillars: time, money, talent. Talent is hard to control. Money you don't have yet. Time is your only friend. What you do between 7 p.m. and 3 in the morning will ultimately probably be the variable of your success.
No, not interested in working from 7 p.m. to 3 in the morning. Not interested at all. Not interested in doing anything after I wrap this show. Just keeping it real. Because when you keep saying yes, when you keep giving into hustle culture, then it's just expected of you. And no one's gonna hit you up and be like, yo, Anna, you look like you're burnt out. You could use a break. Maybe don't do this or that. No, they're gonna put more on your plate. That's what hustle culture is. That is what hustle culture is. It's about squeezing as much work out of you as possible. It's about making sure, and by the way, I know I'm putting myself into this. TYT is actually very good to me. I'm not worried about it in my context. But I'm using myself as an example to say, like, if you do that, right? It's all about really squeezing as much labor out of you so employers get their money's worth. right? They get the best return on their investment. They see you as human capital. I don't know if Meghan McCain thought about it this far, but I do know that that's the underlying message for people who do speak out against hustle culture. She also says this has been me my entire adult life. Trust me, I love working and the satisfaction I get from it, but I have been the queen of burnout for a long, long time. She also added, trust me, I believe it now. I also feel my mortality and the finite amount of time a human lifespan is more than ever. Also, that there's nothing in this world guaranteed, most especially tomorrow. Okay, so that's what she's got to say. But now, here's where I basically say no cookies for Meghan McCain. Meghan McCain is incredibly fortunate and privileged. So she can step away from The View. She can step away from work for the rest of her life if she wanted to. Most Americans can't afford that. Most Americans can't afford to take a single day off to deal with an emergency. So we're talking about two very different classes here. We're talking about two very different situations here. And so while it's easy to say, hey, don't give into hustle culture, what we really need to have a discussion about is what can we do to build labor power to ensure that when there are these insane expectations for workers, they have a way of pushing back. They have protection. So if they say no, they don't have to worry about retaliation. They don't have to worry about losing their jobs. That's why what went down in Topeka, Kansas with the striking Frito-Lay workers was such an important story to focus on. Because those workers were forced to do back-to-back 12-hour shifts with no days off. And they were unionized and were able to strike for 3 weeks in order to change the terms of their employment to ensure that they had better working conditions and were not forced to work back-to-back 12-hour shifts with no days off. So that's what we need to focus on, because it's one thing to say reject hustle culture. It's an entirely different thing to build a labor movement that's powerful enough to withstand the pressure and the retaliation from employers who demand to get the best return on their investment, the best return on their so-called human capital. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, John Iadarola will be joining me. We're going to talk about Kirk the jerk. Charlie Kirk has some thoughts about Simone Biles that garbage. He's just a garbage person. And you know what? John Iadarola likes to note who garbage people are. He's the perfect person to help me do this story. So stick around, we'll be right back.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, right, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I have seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you wanna know how we're gonna win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com.
We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome. You're watching our dose of TYT. Anna Kasparian and John Iadarola with you. What? It is hour 2. I'm wearing a linen dress today.
Is it a linen dress?
I've been loving linen lately. It's summertime linen. I got
Linen,
that summertime linen. Got that summertime linen.
Did you just make up that song? I don't know.
It's what's the name of that singer who sings that song?
Were you freestyling in linen?
I am a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm forgetting the name of that singer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. John, welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing? How was Damage Report today?
Damage Report was good. It was Big News Wednesday. We had a lot to talk about. We started with sports news. I think that's our new thing. I think we're mainly gonna be sports news from now on.
How does Big Rick Energy feel about that?
I don't know, I'm probably nervous. If I had to guess, I'd probably say very, very nervous. And he shouldn't be.
Well, you were excited to potentially talk about this next story with me. I'm glad that we're gonna get to do it together because there was a big decision made by Simone Biles yesterday. And honestly, I saw a lot of supportive commentary toward her, but I should have known better because of course the right wingers have now chimed in. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to respond to Charlie Kirk's disgusting comments. So let's do it. Simone Biles withdrew from the team finals during the Tokyo Olympics and cited that she needed to focus on her mental health instead of forcing herself to compete when she didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. Now, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk got involved and shared his thoughts and commentary on her personal decision. He decided to call her a sociopath. Let's hear his reasoning for that.
Simone Biles says, this Olympic Games, I wanted to be for myself when I came in. And I felt like I was still doing it for other people, as she cried after the team event on Tuesday. So it like hurts my heart because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you selfish sociopath. You kidding me? She's an incredible athlete. Of course she's an incredible athlete. I'm not saying, I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish. She's immature, and she is a shame to the country. She's totally a sociopath. Of course she's a sociopath.
Okay.
Did he just call Simone Biles immature when, isn't he the dude that was wearing a diaper?
I don't know. It's entirely possible. I think it's the gun girl wore the diaper.
Look, no judgment
But
for
he
anyone
probably
who
wore a
needs to
diaper
wear a
too.
diaper. But also, we're talking about like right wingers who thought it would be like a genius idea to implement that as part of their protest, which
I don't even know. I don't rule anything out. But that was just is terrible. Like every once in a while, like he'll something from a show pop up every like, I don't know, 6 months or so, and I'll be like, oh yeah, he does a show. He doesn't just do these like meetings. Like someone presumably tunes into that. They like look forward to it. This like mediocre guy who's done nothing, talking to one of the most elite accomplished athletes in the history of the planet as if she was a puppy. You're also incredibly selfish, sociopath. Like not even, what I said on the damage report was like, okay, so I won't get into it, he looks like he looks. But anyway, he can't even deliver in terms of voice, in terms of, like his whole thing is I'm gonna be in right-wing media. I'm going to find things that I don't actually care about and I'm gonna convince you that I'm really worked up about it and I hate the same people that you hate. And sometimes you have to dig into a person to find out what you hate about them. For him and for other right-wingers with Simone Biles, they had to do a ton of research. They had to look at a picture of her and then realize, oh, this is someone I'm gonna love to hate. And so he has to try to sell that you shouldn't like her, but he can't even do it. He sounded half asleep as he's declaring a 24-year-old athlete a sociopath. Yeah. How can you be so boring when you're being so, on paper at least, bombastic? That's a weird combination.
He's just an untalented, awful person. And he
write to us, please, if you know a person that's genuinely a fan of him. Like I understand he's gonna have an organization forever or whatever. He's always gonna have a job because there's always gonna be a millionaire that's gonna pump money into it, whether it makes any money or not. Because he gets young people to be okay with tax breaks for millionaires.
He lives like a capitalist every single day. Ching.
Exactly. That's not how most capitalists live. Like he lives like an artist in like 1300s France that has a royal patron. A rich person who's like taking a shine to you, throws coins at you. That's not capitalism. I believe that's feudalism actually. But anyway, I'm sure you want to focus on the Simone Biles part of this, so why don't we?
I do. Before I focus on Simone Biles and how incredible she is as a person, as an athlete, as a woman who has persevered in ways that would absolutely crush the likes of Charlie Kirk. I do want to focus on the word sociopath. I don't know if Charlie Kirk is informed on what sociopath means, because if he were informed, I would venture to say that it would force him to take a little bit of accountability for the true sociopath he happens to be. Charlie Kirk is the guy who till this day continues to spread disinformation about coronavirus. In fact, he spreads disinformation about the coronavirus vaccine. He said just recently that as many as 1.2 million people worldwide have died from the vaccine. What? I mean, we debunked that. It was complete nonsense. He was basing it off of an open source database called VAERS, which doesn't confirm anything. Anyone can post on it and claim that a person died. There doesn't have to be any proof of causation from the vaccine to the death. It's just absolute nonsense. And the reason why I call him a sociopath for spreading that disinformation, I think wittingly spreading that disinformation, is because his close friend and co-founder of Turning Point USA died of coronavirus. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care. There's a financial interest for him. He has a vested interest in spreading this disinformation. He knows that people are dying as a result. I would even venture to say that he's probably already fully vaccinated. He's not gonna disclose that with anyone. He's not gonna tell people the truth. A true sociopath lies to people knowing that those lies are gonna cost lives. And that's what Charlie Kirk and other conservatives do on a daily basis, and it's disgusting. He's a sociopath. To turn around and call Simone Biles, who was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar and still competed
and still excelled.
To call her a sociopath is the most ridiculous and disgusting thing that he could possibly say about her. And then this whole thing about, oh, you're representing America, you're representing America. You know what? The US government represents America. And the US government embarrasses America on a regular basis. I'd be a little more concerned about that as opposed to, oh, are the athletes representing us correctly? Are they winning? Because if they're not winning, they're not representing America. Buzz off, really. I mean, if your love for America, if your pride in America hinges on how Olympic athletes perform at the Olympics, maybe you don't really love America, bro. Maybe you don't really love America. And if you do genuinely love America, maybe take a good hard look at the government, not just under Biden, but also and especially under Donald Trump, who was an international embarrassment. So much so that Ivanka Trump was laughed at by world leaders. I don't remember if it was the G7 summit. I don't remember which event it was, but remember,
he was too, yeah.
And of course he was. He's an embarrassment.
Look, you bring up Trump, so of course, after, like Charlie Kirk's watching him day after day, and Trump set such a high bar for physical excellence and everything that, yeah, even Olympic level athletes are gonna come up kind of short after that, clearly. But yeah, no, he doesn't. I don't know to what extent he or any of these people actually care about, like Charlie Kirk, name 5 gyms, please. Like if you actually care about this, I don't think that you do. I don't know if they care about any of these sports. I guess they have to be mad at what's trending or something. Like you may think it's weird to be really into the Olympics. I think it's really weird to pretend to be not into it. Like that seems really weird. Yeah, so look, the thing that's supposed to underlie his outrage is that you're supposed to be representing America. It's important that you do well. Have any right wingers had anything, I'm not even gonna say positive to say about the Olympics for the past 2 weeks, I'm gonna say neutral. Have they had anything to say that wasn't attacking our athletes?
They're too woke.
Yeah, they're all too woke. It's great that they lose, it's all too woke.
We like free speech, we love free speech. Also, athletes are too woke.
Cancel them, exactly. And by the way, like, I know that they want this to be about her being selfish or whatever. The thing is about her selfish move is that it then has a different person stand in for her. And I got news for you. All of their scores go into the team final score. So if she believed that she wasn't going to do well, stepping out and allowing Jordan Chiles come in, who's an incredibly accomplished gymnast in her own right, would be better for the team actually. The opposite of sociopathy. Wanting someone who might score better on average to step in. And that was almost certainly the result. It's all hypothetical. We don't know exactly how Simone Biles would have done. But based off of the first vault and based off of her qualifying performance a few days earlier, it's likely that Jordan Chiles did on average score better. Simone Biles might be leader enough to know that that's going to happen and does the unselfish thing of doing what's better for the team by stepping out, even though it will lead to an immense amount of criticism of her, and allowing Jordan Chiles to step in the same way that she's allowing Jade Carey to step in on the individual all around in place of her.
Real quick, let's just do a comparative analysis, because Simone Biles, despite, her injuries in the past, despite what happened with Larry Nassar, just horrendous sexual assault, not just of Simone Biles, but of several other female Olympians. Like, she still excelled. And you look at her accomplishments and it blows your mind. This isn't even the entirety of her accomplishments. I'll just give you a little taste. So at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, Biles won individual gold medals in all around, vault and floor, bronze and balance beam, and gold as part of the United States team dubbed the Final Five. Biles is also a 5-time world all-around champion, 2013 through 2015, and then 2018 through 2019. 5-time world floor exercise champion, 3-time world balance beam champion, 2-time world vault champion, a 7-time United States national all-around champion, and a member of the gold medal winning American teams at the 2014, 2015, 2018, and 2019 World Artistic Gymnastics Championships. Biles is also the gymnast with the most world medals and the most world gold medals. So
yeah, but Charlie Kirk doesn't approve of her, so what was it all for?
Well, look, Charlie Kirk, he's succeeded in his own right. So let's talk about that a little bit. Charlie Kirk, he applied to the United States Military Academy in West Point, and he didn't get in. And then he went on a national tour complaining about how he didn't get in because of affirmative action.
Which is insane.
Yeah, clown.
It is an insane
absolute
thing to
clown.
say.
In 2015, Kirk told The Atlantic that he was taking part-time online classes at the King's College, and he was taking classes at Harper College, a community college near Chicago. But in 2015, he dropped out to pursue conservative activism, i.e. taking a giant amount of money from right-wing funders to form Turning Point USA. So that's what he got involved in. So he's a college dropout. Not that there's any judgment toward college dropouts, but if he's gonna sit there and refer to a woman like Simone Biles as a sociopath because she made a personal decision to step away for a minute and focus on her physical and mental health, I just think, look, don't throw stones, especially when you're throwing those stones at a champion and you happen to live in this glass house of failure all around.
Yeah.
Period.
In his defense, the glass is filled up with billionaire money. That's true. He could have, like what you said, exactly. Like anybody who drops out, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are a ton of amazingly understanding reasons that people might be either choose to or be forced to because our system absolutely sucks. He could have chosen to differentiate himself, to be an individual, to say, look, I look out there and I see that all the other right wingers that are cookie cutter versions of myself are attacking her because they think that that's what they're supposed to do. But I was in a position actually where I was in college and I chose to step out, to leave. I could have done it. I chose to do something better because I thought that was better for me, something else. He could have done that, but no. Instead, he has to pretend to be worked up about this because he is terrified that if he doesn't, all of the other conservative grifters will get the attention from the hate-filled people that watch them, and he will be less exciting for a couple of days. That's why they have to play this game constantly, every single day, looking for things that they're supposed to be angry about.
Listen, if Charlie Kirk is concerned about being unexciting, he's got a little bit of a problem.
Little bit of coffee before the show or something. Come on. I don't really care if you're boring the conservatives, but I sometimes have to watch a bit of this, man. It's real boring.
I really don't think lack of stimulants is his problem. But anyway, we do have to take a break. When we come back, we'll give you updates on the latest lies from right wingers in regard to the events of January 6th. And later in the show, what are some DOMs doing to get people vaccinated? Fun story, don't miss it. We'll be right back.
What do? I get dirty every single year.
Welcome back to our social break. Eileen, I like your comment. Eileen is one of our members, middle-aged dragon mama. She writes in and says, this is why I love TYT. You're not going to hear what grifters, these politicians are, or really are, all about, and the effects it has on everybody else. Great reporting, Anna, thank you. And I wanna thank my team because I don't do this on my own. I do it with a wonderful team that pitch wonderful stories, and I love doing what we do every day. And just thank you for your support, everyone, because it's tough to do this, and it's tough to like absorb all this crappy news day in and day out, but getting that kind of support and validation from you guys means the world. Naughtiest Maximus says, why is it that, oh, this is a second comment that's similar. Why is it that TYT is the only news source that actually tells me facts and detailed information that I can't get anywhere else? Is it because TYT is just too strong for TV? I guess. Okay. We're kind of on TV though.
Sure, I mean,
we're on skinny bundles.
Skinny bundles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are other good sources of news.
Yes.
Not as many as there should be.
Like Damage Report is also a good show. You should check that out.
That's not what I meant. I meant outside of TYT.
Yeah,
Yes.
like Weekends on the Jacobin YouTube channel.
That's self-serving, but sure, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
But others too.
Hey. All right, Shelby writes in and says, in addition to knowing if Charlie Kirk actually has any fans, I need to know who these people are that tune in unironically to Dave Rubin. Yeah, with Dave Rubin, I think most of them are tuning in ironically.
If you had to watch an hour and pay attention to either Dave Rubin or Charlie Kirk, which would you choose?
I would be more entertained by Dave Rubin.
No, I do Charlie Kirk because it would just be boring. Dave Rubin would be trying to be funny. I couldn't take it.
No, I don't think Dave Rubin even tries to be funny anymore.
Really?
He tries to sound intellectual, which is accidentally funny. And so that I find that entertaining. There's a whole YouTube channel. There's a whole YouTube channel called Dave Rubin Clips. And it's constantly updated with like hilarious clips. They don't edit anything. They just like take a clip of like something he said on his show and check it out. Anyway, the Good Doctor says, do you think Jeff B is working like that going into space?
Jeff Bezos?
Oh yeah, good point. Come on, man. It's all about your willingness to exploit other people. You want money, be ready to exploit everyone. That's absolutely true. And then moving on to our super chat comments. Come on, guys, bring him in. Josh writes in and says, Manchin is also in bed with Mylan Pharmaceuticals. Please cover the story in Vanity Fair about how the plant is leaving the US. We will tomorrow. I wanted to cover that story today, but we just were jam-packed with news stories. I promise you we're covering that story tomorrow, so make sure you tune in. All right, let's get back to the show.
My brain is still in recovery mode from taking in so many high-level important ideas.
Yesterday,
in this economy?
Hold.
What?
There was some scary news yesterday because one of my favorite actors, Bob Odenkirk, had collapsed on set. There were no other details. He had collapsed on set, they rushed him to the hospital, and then we didn't hear anything about it until now. BuzzFeed is now reporting that actor Bob Odenkirk is in stable condition after experiencing a heart-related incident while filming Better Call Saul. So there's actually two good news pieces of information in there.
Is the second one that there's gonna be more Better Call Saul? Oh my God. Well, yeah, I would say that ranks a far second after the man's life.
Sure, both good things.
Yeah, but equally good.
I didn't say
if I could
equally
choose
good.
just
Don't
one.
straw man me, okay? Don't straw man me.
No, it's great news. I saw a lot of tweets about people very worried about him.
Yeah,
and it's not just that he collapsed, it's that there was this long period with no information, so people were very worried.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to some more news. GOP Representative Andrew Clyde defended his description of rioters on January 6th. He had referred to them as tourists, but he's kind of walking that back a little bit now. So what am I talking about? Take a look at this interaction.
Statements that you made saying that the January 6th violent insurrection against Congress was akin to a normal tourist visit. And those officers said they weren't tourists, they were terrorists. Do you stand by your statement that they were tourists?
I would like you to quote my exact statement, not your interpretation of my statement.
Okay. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit. Those are your words.
And I stand by that exact statement as I said it.
So he was right.
So he lied because clearly that is not what happened in the nation's capital on January 6th as hordes of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol and in some cases resorted to violence toward any Capitol Police or DC Metropolitan Police who stood in their way. So
what I don't understand about it is, why did he just waste a minute of our time? He said, I didn't say that, say what I said. He reads what he actually said, he's like, yeah, I said that. Okay, then just say that you said it. I'm glad that Raskin had the quote ready. That's always important. If you're gonna bring up someone's quote, definitely bring it, because they're all gonna pretend that they didn't see it or they didn't hear it or they didn't say it or whatever. But let's be clear, it's good for the moment. It's good for bringing receipts or whatever. But it's not like, oh, and now that guy looks like an idiot and his followers will be forced to grapple with an inconvenient reality. They're not gonna do that, and he knows that they're not gonna do that, which is why he's not gonna back off from what he said. He can make up whatever lie he wants because all of the traditional systems of accountability don't work, because in the best of times they're founded on the idea that if you are proven to be hypocritical or immoral or corrupt or a liar or whatever, that people will care, but people don't have any standards anymore. So why would you ever backtrack on one of your insane lies or statements?
The thing that I just can't get past, and I'm stuck on this issue, what's supposed to happen when the violence that we experienced on that day is justified, minimized by an entire political party? Like what are we to expect in the future, which is something that we should be concerned about, but also
more violence.
More violence, exactly. Yeah. And so I don't even know, I don't know what we're supposed to do. I guess that's my only hang up on all of this, because sure, the select committee holding these hearings is fine. I do think that there's a component of it that's just purely political, right? Everything is political, let's keep it real. But it's honestly killing my soul to see right-wingers justify what happened or deny what happened, minimize what happened, and empower these people. They're emboldening them, they're empowering them. And of course, one of the other tactics that I'm seeing is just deflections, right? Let's deflect, let's focus on Antifa, let's focus on Black Lives Matter, let's focus on anything other than the people who our party incited to carry out those actions on January 6th.
I think that's why we've been fighting against whataboutism for years. But it's a losing battle. Because look, if you're gonna have this growing movement that is against, like people call it, they talk about the death of expertise or whatever, but it's a death of accountability, it's the death of truth. It is teaching people over the course of a lifespan, an entire generation plus, that you do not ever have to accept anything that makes you even mildly uncomfortable. Everything can be exactly what you want, and it doesn't matter what the doctors say, it doesn't matter what the teachers say, it doesn't matter what everybody says. If I tell you that it's the way you want it to be, then you can just come here, shelter under my wing. I will keep you warm and comfortable, and that's it. And people have been just trained in that way. It's been made worse via cable news, and then the internet, which was supposed to be, the source for people to have information, instead helped people form communities where they never had to be exposed to any inconvenient information. And there's so much incentive to lie, to feed people's worst impulses for money. There's so much grift everywhere you look on all sides of the political spectrum that, can we be surprised that people have failed? It's not like we were the best humans on the planet before all of this, and enough cracks have been worked into us and weeds have gotten in and they've spread and everything is falling apart because we don't have any sort of united front against all the lies, all the nonsense, the rejection of reality.
No, I mean, we live in a country under a system that incentivizes individualistic, actions. Specifically, hey, it's every man for himself. Where are the incentives? What can you do in your leadership, in your commentary, if you're in news, that's gonna draw the most attention, the most profit? We see it
that congressman.
We see it exactly. You see it with members of Congress. You see it with, even in the executive branch, there's no question, right? profit over people, profit over country, profit over everything. You see it in the media where people will literally say things they don't even believe.
He knows, he knows we're Taurus.
Yeah, I know.
But why accept that? Like if you will just be replaced by someone who pretends they were Taurus. That's all it is. If he came out and said, you know, I've watched the video and it's really rough, then Trump's gonna tell his fans to support someone to primary him. He'll be knocked out because those people don't fundamentally care. There's no incentives to accept reality.
I know. And I don't know where we go from here because things have consistently gotten worse. During the Obama administration, a small group of officials in the Department of Homeland Security were tasked with investigating and keeping an eye on right-wing terrorism in the United States. Conservatives lost their minds over that and succeeded in getting Obama to disband that group within DHS. And here we are today, folks. Like, it's no surprise that we're experiencing what we're experiencing today. The government has turned a blind eye to right-wing extremism within our borders. At the same time, remember, like, look at the broader picture and the types of discussions that were taking place as, you know, these violent militia groups were feeling more and more empowered. You have right-wingers who are justifying the militia groups now, turning around and saying that Tamir Rice deserved to be shot within 2 seconds of the cop showing up at the park. Yeah, he was playing with a toy gun, and maybe the cop should have asked a question or two before opening fire, but hey, that 12-year-old boy deserved to die.
Yeah.
I just put it all together and pay attention to the discourse coming from the right wing. Right-wing terrorists in this country, totally fine, turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
12-year-old kid playing with a gun, a toy gun at a park, shoot and kill him within 2 seconds. Totally fine that a cop did that. I just take a good hard look at what the right wing is justifying in this country, and enough with the whataboutism. Okay, let's focus on the topic at hand. What happened in the nation's capital is unacceptable. I don't care if the insurrectionists didn't succeed in toppling the government. They intended to do that. Yes, they're disorganized idiots who failed to do that, but it doesn't take away from what the intention was and what the violence carried out looked like.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible that the attack itself isn't as horrifying when you zoom out as the takeaways. Because the fact that that could not get them to accept that there was a problem might be more damaging in the long term than the damage they were able to do pooping on the floor in the Congress and setting fires and beating cops and all of that. Like, coming out of it, right-wing media has demonstrated, no, we're totally fine with this. So one has to speculate what they would have had to have done to get Sean Hannity to have a problem with it, or Tucker Carlson to be a little bit worried about what it means. We don't know, I hope we never find out. And so sometimes people ask, like, why do you talk about some people? Like, why did we do a segment about Charlie Kirk before? Because these are the tools for radicalization. Like, the person who storms the Capitol is a major issue. But for every one of those, there's 500,000 or 1 million other conservatives that are perfectly willing to pop a bag of popcorn and watch the end of the democratic experiment in America. And they are being trained by politicians like we showed you in that video, and people like Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson and Newsmax and all that. That is how you take people and turn them into human monsters, willing to see chaos and death and suffering and all of that.
Definitely. All right, we got to take our final break of the hour, so let's do that. When we come back, we'll give you a rundown of the coverage on this topic on Fox. Don't miss it, and we'll be back. everyone. I'm gonna read some super chats. Ariel writes in and says, progressive media has been sounding the alarm on the danger of domestic terrorism, but some leftists and populist members of the populist right are saying now is the time to pump the brakes. Curious on your thoughts. Yeah, I have no patience for leftists who minimize what happened in the Capitol on January 6th. Zero. They're trying to appeal to a niche audience. They think it's cute. I personally can see through it. I hope most audience members can see through it. There's no need to minimize what happened that day, okay? There's also no need to call for beefing up of the security state. I don't think that we should like shut down the Capitol and make it inaccessible for people who want to visit. But at the same time, I think that it's incredibly disingenuous to pretend as if what happened that day wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal. It was a big deal.
It's just contrarianism.
I know, I have no patience for it. I think it's garbage. I'm not interested in it. Okay, so if you happen to be, part of that group, just know what I think about your commentary. I think it's garbage. Okay, what are you doing? I mean, we already have right-wing lawmakers. We have an entire political party that empowers these goons. Why are self-professed leftists pretending like what happened that day wasn't a big deal? It was a big deal.
I'm sure it's rare at the very least.
I don't know. The grift is real. Moving on. The progressive linguist. Look, and one other thing. The left, man. It's become an incredibly toxic and unwelcoming place to be. And it's real sad. It's real sad to see the splintering taking place, especially when everything that we learned through Bernie Sanders and his presidential candidacy is just like erased. It's like wiped away with all this nonsense infighting. Because look, to be fair, we're operating under a system that incentivizes bad behavior. You want to make a quick buck? Do the contrarian BS. Try to appeal to the populist right while pretending to be a leftist. It's gross. Well,
I try to focus on the fact that we have each other and we have awesome people that we bring on the network, including some new people. Like a year and a half ago, I didn't know Rashad Richey.
That's true. That's true.
Among a bunch of other people, so that is awesome.
Tyler writes in and says, shout out to TYT for exposing the attempted fascist takeover of the Republican Party. January 6th is very reminiscent of the failed beer hall. Yes, you're right. I don't know if I say this right. Putsch. Anyway.
Which are you?
Of 1923. Yes, we gotta go. We gotta go to the show. Sorry. Welcome back to TYT. Let's get right to our next story. Fox News is doing its best to rewrite history and pretend as though what took place on January 6th, all those videos that we saw with our own two eyes weren't real. In fact, nothing serious happened on January 6th. There wasn't a giant group of Trump supporters storming the Capitol. There wasn't violence. There wasn't literally stories of Trump supporters pooping on the House floor. None of that happened. It's all in our imaginations. And they're also arguing that the police officers, whether they be from the Capitol Police or the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police, they're just acting. They're acting. The violence that they had to withstand that day, all in their heads. Take a look at Laura Ingraham and the garbage that she spewed on her show.
I want you to get to the bottom of that.
We have more on him in a moment, but it's not about politics at all. And for best performance in an action role, the winner is Michael Fanone.
Too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist, or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
So she's given them acting awards because they're just acting. I mean, there's literally video of Fanone being attacked by Trump supporters. One of them suggests shooting him with his own gun. He thought he was gonna die. And he suffered.
I guess that would be best supporting actor, the person who tried to take his gun and kill him with it.
Maybe, I guess.
Did she not give an award to those people? Did she not actually engage with those videos? Did she not actually play them? Did she pretend that they didn't exist?
Well,
that seems cowardly.
Well, those are the people she rewards on a daily basis, the people that she empowers, the people who carry out acts of violence, but get to, enjoy the revisionist history from right-wingers like Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, et al. And we'll get to more of them in just a minute. But John.
Yeah, it's garbage. It's what they're there for. Like we knew in advance of even having the hearings, and certainly as the videos were coming out, we've been beaten so much by this nonsense and these horrible people that I was thinking in real time, oh God, what is he gonna say about this? Something terrible. He's been pretending that there's no racist there the entire time. White supremacy isn't a thing. And so as Harry Dunn was talking about the racial slurs that were slung at him and other Capitol Police, I was thinking, well, Tucker Carlson is dispatching some of his young white nationalist producers to figure out a narrative that's gonna distract people. And Laura Ingraham, I guess is less clever. I don't know, she thought she'd make a game out of it or whatever. It's just nonsense. It's just so see-through the propaganda. The network exists to make sure, like it's a news network designed to make sure that the people watching it have no idea what's going on. To make them think, hey, I watch hours of the news, but I know less than if I just didn't pay attention at all. And when the stakes are high, when we're talking about political violence, it's more offensive than normal. It's the same mission as always, though.
Well, Tucker Carlson wasted no time in defending the rioters. So we'll get to that in a second, but just remember what their play was as Americans were still in shock over what transpired that day. They tried to blame it on Antifa. That didn't stick. So now they're changing their tune to, nah, it wasn't really a big deal. Watch.
According to DC police officer Michael Fanone, we need to conduct immediate investigations into the political views of everyone in Washington, including members of Congress and their staff.
That is what I am looking for, is an investigation into those actions and activities which may have resulted in the events of January 6th, and also whether or not there was collaboration between those members, their staff, and these terrorists.
Okay, so you're looking for the real threat from January 6th that happened after the fact. It's statements like that, it's claims like that, it's changes in policies like that. It's the deep politicization of law enforcement that has become normal after January 6th. And that just proves it right there. That testimony that you just heard. People like Michael Fanone are responsible for enforcing the law. As a reminder, that's it. They don't make the law, they enforce the law. And yet you just heard him call for some sort of ideological inquisition into people he doesn't agree with in Washington. And that is unacceptable, and it should make you very nervous.
No, this isn't about political disagreements. This is about a group of Trump supporters storming the Capitol and using violence against officers like Fanone.
Like trying to do it to politicians, yeah.
I mean, this is not about like, oh, this is a free speech issue, and Officer Fanone just happens to not like free speech, and he's going out. No, these are violent people who did violent things on January 6th, and he wants them to be held to account. That's what this is about. In fact, why don't we go to some of Fanone's testimony during the hearing before we do, John?
Really fast, because there was, I thought it was fairly obvious the lie there. He said, I'm gonna show you video of him saying, I want them to try to go in and figure out what everyone thinks, root them out. He played the video, Fanone said, find out what their activities were before the 6th. Then he came back and said he wants an ideological inquisition. He never talked about what anyone thinks.
Nope.
He said, what were your activities? Did you coordinate with a specific group of criminals? The fact that Tucker isn't interested in that is questionable in its own way, but he lied to his audience before and after the video. And unfortunately, some conservatives probably thought it came out of that thinking, yeah, he did say I want to know what everyone thinks, when he never said anything close to that.
It's actually pretty incredible because I've been noticing that tactic more and more, where someone will claim that they're about to play a video that shows something They play the video, it doesn't show what the host claims it shows.
Yeah.
But the audience still believes what the host says. It's the most incredible. I think that there should be a study done on that.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't know, people will interpret things in any way they want to interpret it, even if what they're viewing doesn't in any way depict what they think they're seeing. It's pretty shocking stuff. But anyway, I do want to go to Michael Fanone's testimony during the hearing, because this is what happened to him, and this is why he wants accountability. This is why all Americans should want accountability for what happened.
At some point during the fighting, I was dragged from the line of officers and into the crowd. I heard someone scream, "I got one." As I was swarmed by a violent mob, they ripped off my badge. They grabbed and stripped me of my radio. They seized ammunition that was secured to my body. They began to beat me with their fists and with what felt like hard metal objects. At one point, I came face to face with an attacker who repeatedly lunged for me and attempted to remove my firearm. I heard chanting from some in the crowd, "Get his gun," and "Kill him with his own gun." I was aware enough to recognize I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm. I was electrocuted again and again and again with a taser. I'm sure I was screaming, but I don't think I could even hear my own voice. My body camera captured the violence of the crowd directed toward me during those very frightening moments. It's an important part of the record for this committee's investigation and for the country's understanding of how I was assaulted and nearly killed as the mob attacked the Capitol that day.
And there's video showing everything that he talked about in that testimony, okay? So, thin blue line, support the cops if there's a controversial story involving a cop shooting and killing an unarmed black person. That's when they support cops. That's when right-wingers, that's when Fox News, they love the cops. Let's support the cops all the way. But they will abandon police. They will refuse to support police if their beloved Trump supporters are using brutal force against them. Because they gotta support the Trump supporters, right? That's where the money is. They're so scared of Trump's base. And who knows what Tucker Carlson's future political aspirations are.
I don't know. I mean, he likely could run. Why? I don't know why he would. He's making so much money doing a far easier job. But yeah, it's just the whole thing is so incredibly cowardly. Tucker Carlson is a massive coward. He's not gonna play any of the video. He can't. I'm sure he thinks he's very smart. He cannot play that video for his audience and make a case that that's acceptable. And so he just pretends that it's not there. And running from reality is not an alpha thing to do. It's not an admirable thing to do. He's not an intellectual gladiator. He is hiding from reality and creating a little conservative safe space where they never have to accept how disgusting their movement has become.
One more story for you, because there was one person who spoke a little bit of truth on Fox, and he deserves some credit. Geraldo Rivera was on Sean Hannity's show. That Bongino guy was also on, and Rivera, Bongino, they don't get along real well. So Rivera comes in hot, real hot, but he also calls out Sean Hannity in ways I didn't expect. So let's take a look at what happened.
What role would Nancy Pelosi, the sergeant at arms, have in preparing for such moments?
First of all, Sean, let me say how nice it is to be back with you and my friend Dan. I'm sure we'll have a very erudite discussion tonight. I can also not hesitate to say that I think you've been, with all due respect, and I love you, gaslighting, changing the subject. The subject is January 6th and what happened to the United States Capitol and why it happened. Those two things, the fact that the Capitol was targeted and that the prime instigator, the one who unleashed the mob, was the President of the United States. For God's sakes, Sean,
Geraldo, you just made an accusation against me. We're friends a long time. Wait a minute. You just told me I'm gaslighting something.
I accuse the President of the United States. Gaslighting.
The President said that day. Many.
Oh, that was delicious. John, John.
What?
You got to give Geraldo a little bit of credit.
I knew that's where you're going to go with this.
Because he is changing the subject. This is the whataboutism that we talk about, right?
No, you're totally right. And Geraldo he's obviously the most interesting person on Fox because while he's often just horrible, he's also right sometimes. You know, we gave him credit this morning.
Sweet mustache too.
That's also, I guess, the reason. Yeah, and he was talking about the unvaccinated on the 5 or whatever and getting attacked for that. His job is to be attacked, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was fine. I don't know the history of all of what he's said about the 6th or about any of that stuff. So I can't speak to him in general on the topic, but that seemed okay.
I have to say, Geraldo does seem to, he has this willingness to speak out. Look, he agrees with many of the Fox hosts on a whole host of issues, which is why, I admire your hesitation to give him credit because on many issues he deserves no credit. However, he seemed to be genuinely disgusted with Trump's rhetoric on immigration and got into all sorts of debates in regard to that issue on Fox. It seems like he has genuine opinions, whereas a lot of the media that we're seeing, both on the left and the right these days, unfortunately, seems to include people who say disingenuous things for profit. So I commend him for calling Sean Hannity out because that could be considered biting the hand that feeds. Saying that he's gaslighting is 100% accurate. Focus on the topic at hand. It's not about Nancy Pelosi. She bears no responsibility for this. Focus on the people who stormed the Capitol that day, who were incited by Donald Trump and who should be held accountable. We should do what needs to be done to prevent it from happening in the future. Bonus episode is next. We'll see you there.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not going to want to lose, and he's going to run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's no bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. You stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
But
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Iadarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. 4th day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate, I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections.
And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome, welcome. Ice cream. It's Wednesday.
Hey, I was gonna say that. Now I'll just be copying if I do it.
So, as I was listening to our Wednesday anthem, that is our Wednesday anthem, I was reminded of the treat that I brought in for everyone today. I brought in a treat.
Everyone?
It's not ice cream.
What is that?
I made something that you're not supposed to make unless it's the holidays.
Eggnog? Quiche.
I made coquito.
Oh.
So coquito is the eggnog of Latin America. Although it's not eggnog, it's better. It's way better.
You had me at eggnog.
It's way better.
Of Latin America.
Yeah, it's made with rum, and it's my favorite holiday drink. And I don't know why people only make it during the holidays. I think you should make it year round. And I made.
Wait, did I incept you?
I don't know, did you?
2 weeks ago, I tweeted, it's time for eggnog to be promoted to year round.
Why not? Why not, right?
Yes.
Like why do
Who chooses?
You know what? I'm tired of that tyranny, and I'm fighting back against it. And I think coquito year round, if eggnog is more your flavor, eggnog year round, have fun. Why are we gonna save things we love for once a year? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, and we save it for the time of year that already has presents. It's like win more. We have presents. Move the eggnog to August. Nothing's happening in August. We could use a pick-me-up, and that's eggnog.
I'm into pick-me-ups, definitely. By the way, coquito is it's a Puerto Rican drink. So I say Latin America because a lot of Latin American countries have like taken it on as their own. When I celebrated the holidays with my in-laws who are Cuban, that was when I was introduced to coquito, and I loved it so much that fairly recently I was like, why am I waiting to like visit in-laws during the holidays? Like, I'm gonna make it now. And so I made it, I was supposed to bring it in yesterday, forgot. So we gotta save some for Edwin, but we've got some in the fridge and I'm looking forward to having some. Anyway, with that said, let's talk a little bit about, this story. So, this woman, man, all right.
What?
So, it shouldn't need to be said that black men are not responsible for anything other than themselves and their own behavior, but the woman in the B-roll next to me was drunk and decided it would be a perfect opportunity to harass a man named Nicholas Wilkinson about keeping black women under control. I'm not even kidding. Let's watch the video.
Black male needs to get up and decide to put these black chicks in their place.
Damn, that's huge.
I get it.
You say the black women are messing with your mom? Or you say your mom's in the hospital? Oh, they're messing with the country.
That's all.
Okay, all right.
So the black male needs to say,
Well, let me hold that thought. Let me order this food real quick.
I think someone needs to put you in your place, woman.
I think that nobody wants to because I think that she has just left a wake of people running from any interaction with her for years, probably. If that's indicative of what conversations with her are like.
Boozy advice.
What are the ingredients in a Carantini, by the way?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sure Brett can come up with something though.
I just don't talk. Just don't talk to strangers. That's my new rule for most people who want to say controversial things. Just don't.
No,
just
or
don't talk
not
to
even
strangers.
controversial things. Just anything. Don't talk to anyone.
Look, the other day, last Friday actually, my husband and I go to this restaurant that we're now obsessed with. They have
Coquito?
No, they don't have coquito. It's a Creole food. They have really good Creole food there. Anyway, so we decide like we like to sit at the bar because we like to like have spontaneous. I can't believe who I've turned into because this isn't who I used to be pre-pandemic days. But now I'm just like I need human connection. So I'm not against speaking to strangers. I'm saying like don't speak to strangers if you happen to be like an awful person who wants to say awful things, or if you want to like bug people about things that you shouldn't be bugging them about.
But if your kink is saying terrible things to other people, the advice don't talk to other people is not going to be very effective.
I know.
What are they supposed to do?
No one's going to take my advice. But I have to say, like, we're having drinks at the bar. There was a guy sitting next to us. We like learned all these wonderful things about him. You know, he actually used to live in Louisiana and then he moved to LA when he was a kid.
Sounds terrible, but sure.
No, that doesn't sound terrible. And he
I mean just conversation in general.
He opens restaurants, right? Like he was the co-owner of that restaurant. We didn't realize it until we started talking to him. But like what's also cool is like he's an actor. And he's done all these cool acting things, like acting jobs.
I'm glad that you enjoyed this interaction.
Okay, why am I even sharing this? It's so irrelevant to the story. I apologize. Let's move on.
I don't want to hear my life story, let alone his.
Okay, understood. Let's move on. I apologize. I thought we were friends here. I thought we cared about each other.
No, I'm not talking about you telling me the thing. I've given you a dispensation, you can talk to me, but other people know.
If your purpose in speaking to strangers is to spread love, unity, right? Humanity, do it. But if your purpose is to get drunk and spew awful things about black women or anyone else, like just don't do it. If you need to drink and act ridiculously, then do it at home
or
when you're alone.
Karaoke. Doesn't she think, like she thinks, she was wearing a hat, right? In my mind, it's important that she's wearing a hat for this. She was wearing, okay, good, I was sure. I could talk to him.
Look at her later.
You know what you need to do with those black women? Put them in their place. She thought, I'm helping him, I'm vibing.
She does modern art for a living.
That's what she,
That's
really?
what she looks, she just looks like someone who do modern art for a living.
I don't like,
Not that there's anything against modern art, just like her whole aesthetic. She looks like she's cosplaying.
Sounds like
a
there's
modern
something
artist.
against modern art right there, but yeah, and I like cosplay, but yeah, no, Jesus. Yeah, I think she thought this is cool, what I'm doing, and just totally wrong, but I do think, you know, as our nation comes to grips with the Karendemic, we need to be able to separate variants. And the hat variant likes to vibe and thinks they're chill, which is different than like the, I'm gonna come up on you while you're trying to load groceries into your car and make your day about this now. That's a different vibe.
Yeah.
It's just bad, I guess, but.
Yeah, and I got it, look, I love Nicholas Wilkerson.
Is it Oktoberfest?
I don't know.
I'm getting Oktoberfest vibes.
I have no idea, but Nicholas Wilkerson, who's the unfortunate black man in the video who has to listen to this garbage, is honestly the actual chill one because his responses to her are so hilarious. So with that said, we have more video from this. Let's go to, believe it or not, the next video where she gets even more ridiculous.
Now, what was you saying again?
The black male needs to wrestle the black female and tell her and put her in her place. Because if you don't, she's just gonna just, you know.
Right.
She's just gonna, I don't know, she's just gonna, you know, mess it all up.
Why is the black woman gonna mess it up?
Well, color of her skin, you know, people like porcelain skin, the blue eyes, the yellow hair, you know, all of it. You want to go there?
I'm asking you.
I'm telling you.
got way worse.
It got worse. That was worse.
Man.
That was much worse.
Less drunk Roseanne has got some issues to work through. Oh man, I feel a little bit bad that I was joking earlier because it was racist from the beginning.
Yes.
It was racist from before the beginning.
The whole thing
because
is
the dude
racist.
started filming because she said some other racist thing before.
Yeah.
But man, it got darker.
The sense of entitlement is what always gets me with these types of stories. The sense of entitlement to say awful things to Black people, to people of color, just like this sense of, I have the right to say the worst things to you, and you do not have the right to fight back in any way or to, you know what I mean? I mean, like everything, she's oozing, I'm better than you. And I'm entitled to saying degrading things about Black women. In fact, it is your responsibility to keep these Black women under control. That's what she's saying there. First of all, when it comes to women overall, I've become increasingly sensitive to any type of discourse about keeping them under control because they're too angry, they're too emotional, they're too this, they're too that. Like all this stuff about everyone needs to talk like Tulsi Gabbard, like whisper when they're talking because that's what rational women sound like. That's
people
garbage.
Calling for that?
No, that was what I think that's what a lot of dudes loved about Tulsi Gabbard. She spoke in like hushed tones, and it gives like this, it's not true because she actually did a lot of awful things and had a lot of awful beliefs, but it gives this like impression that the person is like, it only applies to women, by the way. That's why it like grates on my nerves. A rational woman speaks calmly. A rational woman has no emotion. A rational woman is never passionate because women can't be passionate.
Well, then that might be her
women
responding
only get
to
angry
sexism.
or over emotional, right?
Yeah.
So like when it comes to women overall, like that garbage commentary really bothers me. But obviously, it's even worse when it comes to Black women who are immediately, even when they speak in hushed tones, they're immediately defamed as angry. They're immediately brushed off as like irrational, angry, illogical, all of that garbage. So that's why, yes, there's like a funny component to it because as this woman is saying awful things, there's like flying cars above her head in this like cheesy restaurant, right? And she also looks clownish. But what she's saying is actually awful. And it's something that I think a lot of people believe about women in general, but especially about Black women. You know, it's a trope. It's been an ongoing, long-held, discriminatory, or it's just a racist trope, and it's stupid, and 100%. I can't stand. Now, go ahead.
Well, and really fast, and one has to assume the society and all the stuff that led her to this point where she could feel like I can say this stuff,
right?
And have no idea that he is giving you every signal in the world that he has no interest in any of this BS. But she has apparently, like, it's another form of entitlement. I can say whatever I want, and it's not even that she's thinking you have to be nice to me. It's she knows you will be.
Right.
You'll give me the benefit of the doubt. You won't say anything mean. I mean, how could you? Come on, it looks so bad for you if you do. I'll just say whatever I want. Yeah, it's like we need not critical race theory because it doesn't have anything to do with that. That's just what they think it has to do with. But we need a better what she needs to do. Honestly, like I hate the fact that they've ruined the terminology, but she could use 10% of awakening, like a little bit, to understand why not to talk like that, why not to think like that, to be able to analyze his body language the way he's talking. She's asleep.
She knows.
She's asleep.
She knows. I don't know if you can really change people like this, right?
No, probably not her.
Yeah.
Well, removing the alcohol might help a little bit, but
and Nicholas Wilkerson had to be saved by a server, and I wish the bartender maybe like cut her off earlier with the drinking, but nonetheless, someone did step in to kind of like de-escalate the situation. Not that Wilkerson in any way.
He was just being nice.
He was being nice the entire time. It was kind of incredible. So here's the final part of the video.
First of all, our Black women are strong.
I know that.
We got strong Black women in this world. Yes, indeed. And the black women in this country, in this world, is not the problem.
Yes, they are.
Because when you talk about it, you talk about my black mother.
No.
You talking about my black sister. You talking about my girlfriend. You talking about everybody. Now I don't know what's going on with your mom.
Yes. No, sir.
I don't know what's going on with your mom, but
wait.
My condolences to whatever's going on with your mom. But no, I don't think it's every black woman's fault what's going on with your
Tell you about my mom.
Yeah, I'm listening.
That bitch is 97 years old and she don't know how to quit.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
You read me? You got black chicks that are like that, okay? They need to be reined in. I'm serious.
These ladies over here would love for you to join them.
Okay, right on.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, you have a nice day, okay?
Mom's 97 years old and that bitch won't quit. But that's okay. That's okay.
You need to quit. You need to quit. Don't you? Oh God. Yeah, I don't understand why people would like that. That's their life. I went to when I first moved to Austin. I went to a bar, and I think I was waiting for someone or something. And a guy, it was like a sports bar, and a guy just started talking to me about the Yankees. Which, first of all, don't do that, please. I even at that point, I think I watched the Yankees still. Don't talk to me about sports in public. But anyway, and he was criticizing them, and it took maybe 2 minutes before it was, and all these N-words and. Like he was in a packed bar. He had just met me. Oh, he wasn't saying N-words, by the way. He was saying the full word.
Oh my God.
About how they've ruined the Yankees or whatever. And who are you, man? How did you get to this place?
How'd you handle that? What did you do?
I probably super smoothly. I mean, come on. Like I was probably suave and charismatic. I don't know. I probably was like,
you're known for.
This is weird. Thank you. I probably did that.
Yeah.
And then I drank my, I don't know, pina colada or whatever.
No, but you think he's lying and being self-deprecating. It was definitely a pina colada. John doesn't hide the fact that he loves fruity drinks.
In the picture, it's got pineapple and banana. Please, can you take this back? Good day to you with the racism. I'll be over there.
Oh man, wow. These are real people.
They're
having real conversations, conversations we wish weren't taking place.
This is what happens when people stop being nice and start being real. It's not good. I don't like it.
She probably thinks she was being very nice, right? I mean, it's just, anyway. All right, it is what it is. This is what exists in the world. Even after all of these videos, after all of the people who have gotten in trouble for saying awful things to black men, black women, other people of color. I mean, we've done stories about Asian people being harassed. It's just a nonstop. It doesn't matter how many of these stories are caught on camera.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They still do it because they feel entitled to it. They don't expect consequences because they've never suffered any consequences before. So anyway, all right, well, let's do one fine. It is fine. One final fun story.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to save this gem for you because I feel like it's the one thing that you and Ben Shapiro can relate on.
Oh God.
Yeah, so let's do it. No subtitles. Yeah, I want to be surprised. Okay, stop reading it.
Okay.
Stop reading it.
I can't help but read.
Okay.
At parties. No.
Okay. God, I love it. Okay, so you can do it now. You can do. Sorry, guys. I'm sending you mixed messages. We can put the B-roll up now. He's already read it. Damn it. So Ben Shapiro. Is one of these rare birds who likes to post his L's. So what am I talking about here? Here's Ben Shapiro talking about what he likes to do at parties.
I'm the kind of jerk who'd go to a party at Harvard Law, and we'd go to a party, and I would bring a book with me because if people were boring, I was not going to waste the 2 hours just sitting there.
It's a good time to read right now.
Yeah, exactly. I got in a lot of good reading at these parties. So, you know, I turn down dinner invites. Like, it's very difficult to get me to go out to dinner, even with people who are prominent, because I don't want to. Like, you have to make the case as to why I should be spending the time with you as opposed to spending the time with my 2 kids who I like a lot better than you.
So like the thing about the kids, I totally get that. I think that's separate. Let's focus on his college years at Harvard, where he would just don't go to the party, bro. Like, why are you gonna go to the party with a book? But I don't know, John.
What?
Can you relate maybe a little bit?
No, I don't think I've ever taken a book to a party. I've just stayed home and read the book. No, anyway, yeah, no. But the thing about the parties and the kids is that both of those are. It isn't like. Because you said leading into this is something you have in common with him, which I don't have for the party, but I perhaps do for the the posting your L's or whatever. I like making fun of myself, but when I do it, I am actually making fun of myself.
That's not what he was doing.
No, that isn't. Like he said that thinking, this is gonna make me cool. He's the guy he's the most interesting man in the world. He goes to the party and he reads The Fountainhead or what? No, but that's not cool. It's really weird that you would think that that's cool. The only thing that makes me kind of understand why he might now at this point in his life think that is because he has surrounded himself with the sort of people, whoever that interviewer was. Because the interviewer acted as if that was cool. I don't know that interview. I have no idea who that person is, what their politics are. And I get that interviewers are generally not gonna try to turn off the person they're interviewing, but that was not cool and he just got reinforced in his awfulness. Yeah, you're so much better. Here's the thing, I don't wanna go to a party and talk to a bunch of random people. Generally, I do sometimes, it's perfectly fine or whatever. But it isn't because they're too boring. Boring isn't usually a one-way road. You have to know how to talk. Bring a person out of their shell. Bring the conversation to an interesting thing. That is a social skill that he obviously lacks, but he has tried to turn his lack of those social skills into him being superior in some intellectual sense. And he's neither. He's neither good socially nor intellectually. I mean, and he's posting those L's.
It's funny because at least he's consistent. I mean, he had a very similar take in regard to the sexual arousal of women, right? Where he's like, making a woman wet is disgusting. And so I'm a good guy for not knowing how to get a woman wet. Like that's like, you know what I mean? It's like I'm posting my L's but not realizing that I'm posting my L's.
Oh God, yeah, and then it was the L, but then it was like digging the L deeper into the earth with like, well, I talked to my doctor wife and she also
said, you don't want to hit any moisture. Was that too far?
It's just sand no matter how far I go. Stop saying wet. First of all, don't ever say wet to me.
Okay, fine, moist. I'll say moist.
I'm not even a person that normally that's bothered by, but apparently with Tana it kind of does. Don't say wet.
Listen, female sexual arousal is a beautiful thing, and I think it's disgusting. When men are turned off by that, you should be in favor of it, okay? It is beautiful. How dare you? How dare you be turned off by female anatomy? There we go. There we go.
Was that what I was doing? Anyway, yeah, and the thing is, like, I guess this is a version of the Charlie Kirk question. So I assume there were a bunch of people who would watch that interview and think that's cool. Younger people that want to be like what that was.
You know what? Who are we to? We're not the arbiters of what's cool. So look. If he would prefer to read, I think it's smarter. I mean, he's supposed to be a genius. I think it's smarter to stay home and read.
I would prefer if he would do a bit of reading, actually.
In fact, yeah. In fact, showing up to a party and sticking your nose in a book is pretty it's insulting to the people at the party, right?
It's intentionally insulting.
It's intentionally insulting. So if he's being honest and he genuinely did do that, it's just needlessly insulting. Stay home and read your book. But also, I don't think that it's uncool to want to stay home and read.
No, it's not at all.
I think that that's totally fine. I think it's totally fine to not want to go to dinner parties. I think it's totally fine to not want to go to parties in general. I think our lives on this planet are limited. Our lives, period, limited. So why do things you don't want to do? Do things that you actually enjoy. Who cares whether it's considered cool or uncool?
Yeah, totally.
So do you, Ben Shapiro?
I agree. Life is short, and if you listen to right-wing media, it's probably shorter. So make the most of it while you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally right. like, it honestly, it's kind of another L though, because like he's gone to parties and he hasn't ended up having good conversations and he feels bad about it. So he like says the book thing is like it's my choice. I wasn't fired, I quit. No, you just had bad experiences at parties because you're not social or whatever. That's all it is, and that's fine. Not everybody is.
Parties, especially if you're going to a party where you're meeting a bunch of new people, it requires cumbersome small talk. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm not good at it either. I'm not lording it over him, but I'm also not making myself out to be cool. I don't bring books, I bring board games like a real cool person. You show up to the party with a complex Euro game.
He's not even lying. He's not even lying. You know, some Dungeons and Dragons, right?
The one shot?
Nerd.
And by the way, I prefer people who do not like the small talk over the schmoozers.
Oh God, the promoters?
Yeah, the ones like, hey, they show up to a party, they're like, hey, yeah, like those, I can't stand those people.
Did you go to a party with the Fonz? I think you were hanging out with the Fonz, actually.
But you know what I'm talking about? Those like they just seem like schemers.
I've been to a few like Hollywood parties or whatever, and it's like, oh, clearly you are made for this town, and clearly I am not. I'm gonna go read my book.
The whole conversation reeks of, what do you do? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more about like, what am I gonna get out of this conversation or this person?
Who the F are you, really, is the vibe I get, but yeah. And it's just, his thing was so like, even with prominent people, like, yes, you're getting invited to a lot of great dinners in rooms filled with mahogany. Like, I get it, you're really awesome or whatever. It's just so try hard, it's so pathetic. And people should be able to see through that.
Yeah. I like this. I think that we did a good job in covering that. We gave him a little love, but also a little hate. A lot more hate than love, but still,
That's true.
That was good.
Because he's not being authentic.
We're being fair.
When we say that authenticity is important, we actually mean it.
Yeah.
He's being fake, so we're calling it out.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everyone check out Damage Report every day on the TYT network.
Tomorrow, Abelina Sabrina is gonna be joining us. It's gonna be awesome.
She's sweet, I like her a lot.
She's awesome, yeah.
All right, and as you guys know, Happy Half Hour is next, hosted by Brett Ehrlich. Check him out at twitch.tv/TYT, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.